Racing downfield. Mitchell, touchdown, Texas. Aggression and execution, 39 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Rashard Smith on the return for the Canes. Catches a seam. Here goes Smith. Would you look at what we got going on in Hard Rock, folks? How about it? 98 yards.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Some pressure. High throw. It's intercepted. Picked off by Cole Bishop. With a minute 35 to go, Robertson makes a huge mistake. And right where they're at now, the Utes.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Hanging on to the timeout in the hurry-up. 47 seconds left. Second down, pressure, and it's intercepted. It is intercepted by Jeffrey Bossa, and he's going to return it for a pick six.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Big hitter right out of the break. Audric Estime's going to go the distance. An 80-yard touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Snap, pressure, Aguilar, back foot throw, Davis, incomplete, no flags. Tar Heels win.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, here we go. It is Thursday afternoon. This is 365 Sports. I'm David Smoak. This is Craig Smoak, and this is Paul Catalina. And I just saw Eric Cuellar in the chat room go, I hope they talk college football today. I kind of think that's what we do at least 85 to 90% of the time, if not all of the time. And yes, Eric, that's what we will do. We have Garrett Ross, Owen, Levi, Emery, Jack, everybody is here today in some way as we get ready to run this the next 3 hours. And what was the story before even this show, Garrett Ross, lifelong LSU fan, and what is the triple option, the bets, lost a bet last week. And Garrett Ross, what did you have to do earlier today?
I had to put on the most disgusting Alabama shirt ever that says Roll Tide, y'all. And then my wife, who is a Bama fan, sent me with her Houndstooth scarf. And you had brought in a Bama hat from I don't know where. So I looked absolutely atrocious and was rocking Roll Tide gear.
I mean, Garrett, for people who didn't see you having to do it on the triple option, I mean, I have a photo.
Can you put it up?
I'll have to hunt this down.
Hold on.
It's not one of my finest moments.
No, I mean, it's not deleted. I mean, I can.
I know my answer, and this would be for the chat room today. What bet in college sports would you never, ever, ever accept, knowing you might have to put on an opposing, hated, or a team you just don't like jersey?
What do you mean? What bet? Like,
yeah, okay. If you made a bet, what is a bet you would not take that might mean you have to put on a jersey of a team that you just don't like?
I don't know. I don't think I'd want to wear burnt orange if that's what you're trying to get at.
Sure.
What kind of bet you would take on? I mean, I'd bet just about anything within reason, but yeah, I don't think I'd wager to. Probably, I don't know. I would, though. I don't really care that much. I'm not that worried about putting it on. I wouldn't like it. That's the point of the bet, though, is that you're not supposed to like the end result of the bet. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to do what I would have to do if I lost. So I guess that would be wearing burnt orange or, something along those lines. But beyond that, I'm not too picky or too weird about that kind of a deal.
One answer. Craig's saying burnt orange. Paul Catalina, Florida?
Yeah, it would definitely be the Gators. Now, look, I don't know who had the worst punishment because we did them both today simultaneously because it took one day longer to get the shirt last week than I had hoped. So we couldn't do Garrett's punishment
Did you also
in week
make him
one.
pay for it?
No.
Okay.
I went deep discount. Believe me, that thing is not made out of the finest Egyptian cotton. I think Garrett could tell you that. But Levi had to do the pick segment from a porta potty over here at.
No, he did not.
At McLean Stadium. So
it's some great
he's
stuff.
Forever unclean now.
The triple option 1 to 2 every afternoon. Here is Paxton. I could never put on a Texas Tech jersey. S. Michael DeHart, a West Virginia fan who they play Pitt. I'll burn a Pitt jersey before I'll ever put it on. I'm wearing a Cowboys or a UT jersey, and thanks, Roy. They're basically almost the same fan, aren't they? Most Cowboys fans seem to also be very much UT fans. Not all, but it seems like. And then, of course, wet blanket at Oklahoma State fan. I would never wear anything that has OU on it. So there we are with some feedback.
There you go.
That. There we go.
Oh, what a nice shade of red.
Yeah, and it's
it looks like you are
too small.
Like your neck is like you're about to be like Saddam Hussein right there. You got a hand.
Definitely something like that.
Yeah.
Is that your most hated rival? I did not know that. I didn't know.
It's up there. Like them in Florida, I hate, despise.
Isn't LSU's common team in the East always been Florida? Like
Yes.
that's always been. Yeah, it used to be a problem because they were both always pretty good.
Now, Garrett, put the extra salsa on this right here. What team is your wife a diehard fan of?
He just said that.
Unfortunately, Alabama.
Yeah. She's an Alabama.
Alabama.
Fan. Wow.
It is miserable.
They have. I saw baby pictures of their son Parker where he's got Alabama stuff, and
poor kid.
Garrett's trying to raise this kid a certain way, and it's tough.
All right, so somebody stepped in it again, although he says he doesn't care. Colorado State football coach Jay Norvell, everything was going about really nicely as Colorado State and Colorado were going to play this week. And Jay Norvell, I sat down with ESPN today. I took my hat off. I took my glasses off. And I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me. All right, so then this sparked, oh, dear God, we have done it again. Or somebody has maybe given Deion in Colorado a little something to have that chip. Although, here's Deion. You have the David Oven. Okay, so Deion Sanders, it was just going to be a good game. They done messed around and made it personal. I'm a grown man. You telling me what I'm supposed to wear, what I'm not supposed to wear, and that was like, please. So there's Deion and Colorado State and a little bit of something before the game coming up this week.
Look, they're going to, if there's not something that somebody actually does, they're going to make one up in their head. That's what they're going to do. That's part of their MO right now is to find everybody who doubts them and then build it up in their head to create the motivation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but so far they're 2-0 in the perceived slights. And this one right here isn't even a perceived slight. It is absolutely a slight. So Jay Norvell, don't give him any reason. It's not that maybe
so
Jay Norvell
an opposing team have a little swagger.
Maybe that's what it is, but I just think it's a silly move. You're trying to beat Deion at his own game, which I don't think you can really do. I think you're going to have to beat Deion by out-coaching him. So go out-coach him.
I think if you feel like you have a legit shot to beat him, then I don't have a problem with what Jay Norvell said necessarily. Not that I, agree with him or support what he said, but if he feels like they're going to go in there and beat Colorado, then I guess that's why you would say something that could add some gasoline to just what are really some sparks that wasn't much of a fire that now has turned into a fire. But if you're not that confident you're going to beat them and you're just talking to talk bad about Deion, then I think that, it's not the smartest thing to do necessarily or the coolest thing in the world to do. He definitely made it personal because he went straight to the point. Like with Matt Rule, you could say was he really dogging Deion? I mean, or was that just kind of, in their heads? And certainly with the whole TCU situation and Kendall Briles not paying attention to Shedeur to camp, was that really how it was, or was that their perception? You can look at both of those situations and go, I don't know, maybe there's something to it, but it seems like they're reaching a little bit just from the outside looking in, not having the eyes on the Kendall Briles-Shedeur Sanders interaction, not really knowing what to make of that. This right here, there's no doubt about it. Like, there's no translation needed. There's no footage needed. They absolutely got, somebody stepping up and just saying it straight to their face. So, you know what? Let's see how Colorado State plays this weekend. It certainly makes this game far more interesting than it was going to be prior because they would still get an audience just with Deion and Colorado doing what they're doing. But now you have the element of people expecting them to go and beat the ever-living mess out of Colorado State. And I'm sure,
they're 24-point favorites. Yeah.
So I'm sure that, now that what this blowout is going to be will be even that much more watched because there's this element to it. So, if Jay Norvell's intention was to promote this game, well, then by gosh, he did it as best as you possibly can because now people are talking about Colorado State that otherwise weren't really talking about this game. They were just talking about one of the teams and one of the coaches. Now they're talking about the actual matchup. So well done in that regard.
Yeah, and it's already going to have a massive audience. You know that. And also, would we be doing as much of this if Deion was at Jackson State? There was a little flare-up with a coach in a post-game handshake that didn't really happen in a game, I believe, last year where they got a little bit into each other. But, you know what? Jamie Norvell, why? Why not? I mean, you say why or why not? He said it. I'll never forget in 2001, Nebraska was number one in the country. They were still in a point where they were, in that run of winning 3 national titles since 94. Had played in a couple of, I think, others, at least one more against Florida State. They were really good. And Dan McCartney came in and said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take the ball and we're going to jam it down their throat. And, of course, Nebraska's defense was really good. And Colorado did that. And you wonder if that didn't maybe somehow kind of motivate his team. They ran for whatever they wanted. And he was Dan McCartney, and they did it. So sometimes you can do it, and James Brown, when Texas in the 96 first ever Big 12 game, said we're going to win the game. Sometimes you say it, you're popping off. Sometimes you never know what kind of motivation it can give you and or the team you play for, or the other team for that matter. So there's that on Colorado and Colorado State.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of strange for Jay Norvell to attack him the way that he did as far as how he's supposed to dress as a man and things like that. Like, I see his angle. But I don't know that, it was really necessary to say out loud, or I just think it was kind of a weird shot to take, but it was a shot nonetheless. And they'll get to play. I mean, that's the good news. Not like he pops off and then Colorado State aren't playing for another couple years or something. Like, they get to suit up this Saturday, so we'll see. I mean, Jay Norvell can go out there and beat them, and then he'll get the last laugh, and he could turn this whole thing on its head. But as you mentioned, they're pretty heavy dogs, and now you've got an even more motivated Colorado team that clearly, plays off of that disrespect card. They play with that chip on their shoulder, and so what was lacking really anything outside of the rivalry element to this game and just the natural attention that Deion brings now has this sublayer to it, and that spices things up. So we'll see. But, yeah, if Colorado State wins, that would be absolutely hilarious because then what the reaction would be like. I fully expect Colorado to be 3-0, and I'm just interested in the exchange now whenever that happens.
One of the things also, retired stockbroker, Sir Blah, Blah, Blah may have been the one that said, man, they called each other and say, hey, we don't need, let's go ahead and hype this up a little bit. And Sir Blah, 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 Deion and Norvell just added another 500,000 to the TV audience that has been record-setting for what Colorado has done against TCU and also against Nebraska.
Yeah, I also think that I'm surprised that the one avenue that Deion took was, if you say my mother taught me differently, I can tell you just from growing up in the same town and living very close to Deion Sanders' mother that the person he was closest to in his whole life, maybe taking a shot at how she raised him was where he was going to go with that. But I guess not. But, yeah, it's interesting. Look, thanks for the fodder. It's great for a talk show. So, I mean, I appreciate it. I just think it's an interesting way to try and go and beat a guy at his own game.
Well, let's put it this way, Paul and Craig. We had a handful of little stories to get to. We would do that. But it gave us something else to start with. And Garrett also with his Alabama shirt. That was wonderful to be able to start it all off. I had sent Garrett a picture, but I guess we couldn't use it. A TCU helmet. It looks gorgeous for their game going on in Houston. Not sure if you've seen that, but I went to at TCU football if you want to get on what they're doing. And then there's this nugget. The longest losing streaks in college football. Nevada, 12. I didn't even know Nevada had lost 12 in a row. Right behind them, the Baylor Bears. Because we've discussed it now. 5 in a row after losing the game to Texas State. 6 in a row after losing the game that they had all but locked up against Utah. Ball State and Virginia, Arkansas State, UConn, and North Texas. We had the Super Chat yesterday. Hope the Super Chatter was able to hear what we said about Eric Morris and North Texas. So those are let me tell you something. If that number next to Baylor goes to 7, well, we all know it will be, my God, what happens if they don't beat Long Island to end that streak. Now, also,
I'm trying to see this TCU helmet, but I have to watch this 30-second video. Show me a freaking picture of this dadgum helmet.
I know. Just give me a standard graphic. I agree.
Yeah, could somebody just show me a picture of this helmet? But it looks purple. It's rotating in the darkness and all that. So eventually, I still don't even know what it looks like I don't even know what it looks like after that video. You cannot even tell what the helmet looks like. So I don't know. I'm sure it looks cool though. But what was the thing that you just talked about? The losing streak. Yeah. I was on with the Big 12 on Sirius today, and they were talking about, obviously Baylor and asking about just sort of what's going on. And I had to tell them, like, every week it's something different. They're like, what's the main problem? And I'm like, every week it's something new. Like week 1, they couldn't, do anything defensively to get any stops. And then week 2, Sawyer Robertson gets hurt and they can't score in the second half. And then, point to the Air Force game, and that was something different entirely. And then point to point to any of the 6 losses, and it's something different seemingly every time. But they're not going to lose this weekend. I don't have any doubts in my mind. It'll be the coldest take of all time. But if they lose to Long Island, then heads are rolling. They have to. You'd be on a 7-game losing streak with no wins in sight the rest of the schedule, and you would be scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel. You've lost to Liberty before. There's at least some reasons behind that. You've lost to Texas State. You can at least say, hey, big hot offense, first game of the year. If you were to lose to Long Island in week 3, it's over. Yeah. It's over. And there's no possible way you could excuse that. I don't care if RJ Martinez is playing the entire game. You are so much better than them in every facet of a program, and bigger than them in every facet of a program. So I'm not even entertaining the idea, but I could tell when they were talking of they're like, is it possible? And I'm like, no, it's not. But that's how people view them right now. Is like, it's so down that could they possibly lose to Long Island? And that's where they find themselves.
We have every Levi asks us, or whoever it is, sends us an email. There's like 2 or 3 different angles of predictions we do, and we'll have our Big 12 5 games for this week. But my response to Baylor and Long Island was, I cannot believe basically I had to pause and kind of think about this one. Not that I didn't think Baylor would win, but I was like, I started looking up stuff with Long Island. I started like, wait a minute, who have they played? Ohio? All right, they're not bad. And then and a couple of others. But, okay, so there's that losing streak list. Now, how about this one, boys? Dartmouth College, part of the Ivy League. 15 men's basketball players forming a union and joining the local 560.
Yeah, it's going to happen more and more. Dartmouth, this is probably an easier testing ground than, say, Oklahoma to do this. And they'll see how that goes, but it's going to happen more and more and more. And athletes are going to unionize and demand revenue sharing, and that it's eventually going to go that way. The best thing that the universities can do is accept that it's going to go that way and not spend a whole lot of time and energy fighting it, and try to find middle ground before you get where we are with NIL right now, where there is such a, this is how it should be on one side and this is how we want it on this side. And when you dig your heels in and you don't accept any kind of compromise, then the ruling and the decision is either going to be one way or the other, and then you're going to get all or nothing. So it would probably be wise for them to start moving in advance, but this is the NCAA and it's colleges, so that seems unlikely.
Yeah, I don't know about how all this stuff works. I'll be honest with you. And I hear union and all that. My brain half turns off. I know this is important steps being taken for the the rights of student athletes and how much of the money flowing needs to be going to them rather than the way that it's been set up for so long. The structure is archaic and it needs to be changed. They've taken some pretty big steps as far as NIL and that becoming, a real thing. And, I think people realize that there's way more money out there, that the NIL is not scratching the surface, or it's only scratching the surface, and that it still doesn't funnel the right amount of money into the pockets of the student athletes compared to the amount of money that's funneling into the schools and into the executives and so on and so forth. So seems like it's, a notable step. I don't know how significant it is because, again, that's not really my area, but, let's see where it goes. And I imagine we're going to be talking about more things like this. But, yeah, I don't know how that plays into the bigger picture. But as we know that based on all the things that have gone on the last couple of years in particular, the status quo is being challenged. And things are changing. Yep. And college sports in 5 years will probably look a bit different than it does right now. And 10 years from now, it'll look even more different. And who the heck knows what it looks like really in a decade. But, that's something to monitor, I suppose.
Yeah, Paul, if you had a vote, Craig, if you had a vote, and again, we know how we had this in the chat room for a couple of days. So the top 25 comes out sometime in August, a week, 2 or 3 before the regular season, right? There's the AP, that's the media, and then there's the USA Today, which is the coaches poll. Based on first 3 weeks, because there have been, 3 games. USC played a week early, and a handful of others did too. Based on what you have actually seen on paper, how would you or who would be, and it doesn't have to be in order unless you want it to be, your top 5 teams based on who they have beaten, who they have played, and what you have seen?
I would say based on who they've beaten, takes out Michigan and Georgia because they haven't even gotten close to the teeth of their schedule yet. And Georgia doesn't have as many teeth in their schedule.
That doesn't mean you're saying they're not, but you're just saying based on what we see.
If that's a factor, I have to take
just
them
to kind
out.
of change up, otherwise,
So, yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
And I think it was TJ Scott who kind of threw this in here yesterday in the chat room, and it's an interesting thought exercise. I would say the best teams I've seen who have beaten the best people so far would be Florida State, Texas. I'm going to say, even though they haven't gotten into USC just looks really amazing to me. The way that they're playing.
They overwhelm people with their offense.
Overwhelm people.
We'll see what happens when they face somebody who can actually maybe stop them a little bit.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with them. I am very impressed with Oregon right now. I think that going in and winning, when you didn't even necessarily, they played well, but they didn't play their best against Texas Tech. So I would say Oregon. I like that one, even though Tech is 0-2. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Penn State as well.
Okay, Greg, you have a kind of a little chunk there of teams.
I mean, yeah, this is more of like a homework question. I feel like so they would need to sit down and actually get my real thoughts on it.
How I
but
operate.
Yeah, just off the cuff entirely. Florida State and Texas jump out immediately. Beyond that, Colorado. If you're going off of just kind of the way they've looked and the hype and things like that, and I know that, TCU and Nebraska aren't necessarily where you look at them, but is that not better than beating Long Island or Albany or, southern, eastern Massachusetts or whoever? So I think Colorado, as far as most impressive, I think they'd have to be in there. So Florida State, Texas, Colorado. Haven't seen a ton of Michigan, but I know that I'm missing something there, and that's part of where the homework would come in. But
how about Washington?
Yeah, they look good. They definitely look good. I think that they're another just one of the multiple pieces that have made the Pac-12 so exciting. I don't know that I'd jump for joy over beating Tulsa and Boise State, but that's respectable as well. Again, for 4 and 5, I need to actually look into it because I think you're sort of splitting hairs with 2 games of evidence. I don't think that there's really a big handful of separation. But Florida State, Texas, Colorado, I'll throw USC in there because I have been impressed by them. And then for that 5th one, it's it could be about 10 different teams in my head right now. But those 4 I feel pretty good about.
Paxton has Florida State, Texas, Oregon. It's hard to argue with that. Just to kind of, because of TJ, what he brought up yesterday, how come so-and-so's 1 or how come so-and-so's 5? And a lot of it is just from preseason reputation. but still as far as meat on the bone.
Yeah. Miami and Wazoo, too, I think deserve a little consideration when you talk about impressive wins so far. Miami beating A&M, Wazoo really beating Wisconsin, a team that, I think a lot of people just hear Wisconsin, hear Wazoo, and they're like, oh, well, Wisconsin will probably figure out a way to win that one. But Wisconsin had no control in that game at any point.
All right,
it was all Wazoo.
Christopher Shannon, Georgia, Texas, Florida State, USC, Michigan. That's his list.
Yeah, Georgia, I'd throw in there. That could be my fifth. So, yeah, Georgia, Texas, FSU, Colorado, and USC, I think would be pretty solid. But, again, there's like 5 other teams, Oregon being one of them that you'd go, like, they're right there as well. I mean, there's not enough separation, really. There's some. We've seen some. Clearly, some teams look better than others. But, yeah, I'm excited to get another week's of evidence to see.
Tim Salinas, Michigan, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And some of your feedback. Matt Moon, good to hear from you. Oregon is in top 4. I'd say Texas, USC, Florida State, and honestly, Washington. I don't know if anyone's saying Oregon's top 4 or even a couple of the other teams. We're just saying based on, and again, there's not a lot of evidence, but just kind of to change the topic a little bit on who you've seen evidence of what teams have done.
Yeah, I don't think Colorado's top 4 or 5. Oh, God, I just motivated them for their next week's game.
Yeah, this is going to be a clip of our show.
I don't think they're that, but I think based on who they played and how they performed, I think that they deserve to be mentioned there. But, yeah, I mean, Oregon, they've looked good. They also nearly got beat last weekend. I mean, that was a Tyler Shuck interception on what could have been a game-winning drive. Now, to their credit, they've stayed in the fight and they, made the plays at the end, but they were on shaky footing the other day, but they survived. So, yeah, Oregon looks good through the first couple of weeks. And, man, the Pac's just shaping up to be a hell of a race once that gets underway.
Well, I was listening to part of a Joel Klatt podcast. I was listening to him. He was talking about the game, Colorado State, and the I guess the incentives or the receipts or whatever. And he even said, listen, this is going to be a clip that I'm sure they play like tomorrow. And here's a guy that went there. He is stunned by who they are, but he's now seen them up close and personal and after the last 2 weeks. And he was like, I still think that maybe over-under would be like maybe 8.5. Like now that you have, Garrett, if you took Colorado, start of the year, a lot of people, I think it was like 3.5, right? Maybe not even that. There were some like forecasting disaster.
Right.
Now that you've seen them, and they do have a bunch of people loaded up in the Pac-12, so there's going to be some great games. What would you say now is perhaps a number that you would say, no, that's too high? Like, would it be 8? Would it be 9?
I would probably say 7, honestly. Like, given coming in, they were looking at 3. I think when you look at what they have going forward, I don't have their full schedule ahead, but just thinking like USC and Oregon being pretty much back-to-back, I think if you go 7, that would be a little high, but I'm cool. I'm comfortable with saying 6 wins.
Okay, all right. Just curious on that, too. And so it does change who they are and now what you've seen. And now there's games you go, wow, they didn't have a chance. Now they have a chance pretty much. You don't know. Pretty much in every game based on how they're playing at this particular time. All right, when we come back, we will have predictions. We have 5 games every week. We've already had a couple of different weeks. Levi has put together a cute little graphic that will tell you how we've done or not so well and what we have for 5 games this week. And you can play along with us if you want. The text line is 254-339-1122. And the chat room, of course, is always live and rolling along. This is 365 Sports. I asked in the chat room, what is the most traumatic dental appointment? What's the most traumatic dental situation you've been in? Mine, I think, happened today. I was about to go work out, and I put a bottle of water between my teeth, just kind of hold it as I was locking my condo door, and my bridge fell out. The front bridge of I'm fine now. And it was like, holy crap, what do I do now? Well, the first thing I did was make sure I didn't swallow the bridge, went inside, got a Ziploc bag, put it in there, and walked out, went to go work out, but texted you've heard me discuss him. Dr. Steve Childress has said, man, I'm so sorry. I know your schedule's packed. I've got another problem. This wasn't a cavity. This wasn't a new crown, but this was a bridge. And he had been telling me at some point that thing was going to wear. It's been like 25 or 30 years ago that I had this done. And you would not believe he is Picasso. It is incredible, the trauma work he can do. I never had any pain, although there was another needle. It was fantastic. Dr. Steve Childress, whether it's something as simple as a cleaning with his hygienist or something with trauma when it comes to dental work, he is fantastic. If you're in the Central Texas area, I recommend, and I tell you, he takes care of me. Unbelievable work at Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
During Jeep Adventure Days, save big on 2023 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee Limited with values up to $5,500. Or 10% off MSRP on new Jeep Gladiators on all trim levels. Or 10% off MSRP on a new Jeep Compass at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
So, every week, Levi asks us to pick 5 games. Sometimes it seems like they're pretty easy. And then, well, you never know because that's why they play the game, right? So, through 2 weeks, we've had 10 picks. We're going to start doing this on Thursdays in the 3 o'clock hour. Here are the standings. Paul was 4-6 until Levi just changed it. He's 5-5.
No, I was 5-5.
Emery is 5-5.
Yeah.
I'm 4-6, and then Garrett and Craig off to a little bit of a rugged start. So, but here are the picks for this week. I can't even see Arkansas. Arkansas and Brigham Young. Everybody, you kind of go over your picks here. I just feel like Arkansas is better. I know they're favored by 9. Vegas is usually pretty good. But Brigham Young struggling, not so much against Sam Houston State, but they're not scoring a lot of points. I think Arkansas is going to put up some points.
Yeah, I think that I thought BYU will do well in this game, but when in doubt on why you're picking something, I'm going to lean towards the more consistent quarterback, and in this case, it's KJ Jefferson over Keaton Slovis. So I'm leaning Arkansas because they're at home and they have the better quarterback.
Yeah, man, that opening week was. I haven't gone back to look. That opening week was brutal. 0 for 5 for me. Thanks, Tech. Thanks, LSU. But, hoping to bounce back, and I'm going Arkansas as well for the reasons that you mentioned. But, I don't fully trust BYU just yet. And I don't know why not like I just trust Arkansas all that much either. But given that they're at home, given that they've had some inherent advantages on BYU just as far as the competition they play, the way their program has, recruited and things like that, I feel like just early on here I'm giving the edge to KJ Jefferson and the Pigs. But you know what? BYU's played – they played, two inferior opponents. The defense looks like it's made steps forward, which is why you made the change last year. I'm still kind of not sure how much I trust Keaton Slovis in the offense, so that's why I go with the Hogs at home.
Garrett?
For me, I'm with Craig there. I really don't trust Keaton Slovis. I think when you get down to it, KJ Jefferson's the better quarterback. Rocket Sanders is phenomenal at running back. I don't think that BYU's defense has really played an athlete like him yet. So I'm right. And plus it's at home, so I'm taking the Hogs.
All right, well, I mentioned why I picked Arkansas. So all of us pick Arkansas. Emory goes with Brigham Young. And Emory is, of course, going to be a part of this every week.
I entertained the idea. I just couldn't go all in like that. But, man, what a win that would be for Kalani Sitake and company.
All right, then we go to a game that is as even Paxton or a chalk. Washington at home against a Michigan State program that either comes out fighting like an angry animal cornered, or they just have nothing in them. Or, hey, by the way, Washington's better no matter what Michigan State does, and we all take the Huskies across the board.
Yeah, I mean, they're just Michael Penix is so good. And, I thought about in this game, how much emotion is there because of the Mel Tucker situation. But I do think that's going to be one of those, air out of the balloon things.
At M3GA7 iron, Rocket Sanders is out for this game.
Phenomenal.
Sure, maybe an Arkansas fan. But so that, at least thank you for giving us that feedback. I had not seen that. I'm sorry, Paul.
Yeah, there might be some emotion at home at Michigan State, given all the controversy that's gone on there because of the Mel Tucker situation with their players. But I just feel, knowing how these things go, that there might be some air out of the balloon, as opposed to win one for the Gipper. I don't think that's necessarily how this is going to go. So.
I would have picked Washington regardless of all the Mel Tucker stuff. So with all that stuff going on, I'm definitely rolling with them. I mean, this will be, in East Lansing, so they've got that going for them. Maybe you rally, not for the Gipper, but just for yourselves and your brothers and your teammates and your fans and all of that. That's certainly possible, but I just think Washington's a little bit too explosive, and so I defer to Michael Penix and company.
All right, and of course I took Washington. Garrett did as well. Now this game here, kind of an interesting. An interesting matchup with Minnesota after that opening win against Nebraska. North Carolina has beaten South Carolina and Coastal Carolina, and that game was
App State.
App State. That was a shootout. So I all of us across the board with North Carolina and Mac Brown and company.
Yeah,
Minnesota will be physical. They'll be the Big Ten team, and I'm sure that they'll throw some heavy. Fists. In North Carolina, I think that I doubted them in the first week against South Carolina, and that proved to be way off. And that was a pick that I kind of was pissed at myself for. So I'm not going to doubt Drake May again now that they're up here a second time. But yeah, this one is interesting, and kind of a clash of styles in some ways. But yeah, I go with the Tar Heels at home and with Drake May there pulling the trigger.
All right, Garrett, you want to add anything to it, Paul? All right. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think Craig nailed it. Drake May's the difference here
and
in this game.
All of a sudden, I feel like I'm on an island and isolated and in a dark closet, and no one knows I'm there because I picked Pittsburgh and West Virginia. This is, of course, an intense rivalry. And I think this is pretty much, isn't it? Isn't Pittsburgh favored?
This is, yeah, and look, this to me is a bit of a coin flip because of the rivalry game. I picked West Virginia because to this point in the season, Garrett Green's played a little bit better than Phil Yurkovich. I mean, that's why I did, and it's at West Virginia. I think that one sticks in their craw a little bit. There is a sense to me that, and there should be a sense all around West Virginia that they need this one really badly. So I am going to. I would have picked Pitt anywhere up until maybe about a day ago, and I've started to lean West Virginia on this one.
I was thinking that I was going to be the outlier here and be the only one picking West Virginia, honestly. I didn't think anybody else would have confidence in them just because they've sort of been on the downswing. But, yeah, I don't fully trust Pitt. I don't think they're just some great team. Cincinnati got the win over them last week. Now, granted, they had to hold on to that win. But I think that, West Virginia's got a real opportunity here. I think it does matter that's in Morgantown. I think it does matter they got their first win last week and got to taste that. And I think that, they're still a team that kind of trying to figure out just how good they are and who they are. But I think this is as much that Pitt's just not an overwhelming, like, oh, yeah, they're clearly better.
Right.
So it's a coin flip, I think, like Paul said, especially with the rivalry aspect to it. So I'm going to put my trust in Neil Brown and the Mountaineers to go and get a big W in the non-con.
And for your West Virginia fans who watch us, I apologize, and I hope I'm wrong. Even if I get a loss out of this. I want to see Neil Brown get something he needs. All right, Georgia across the board. You have to put them up there. They're playing another, an SEC team in South Carolina. But was there even a blink? Did you blink here? I did not.
Absolutely not. And then when you start telling me, well, if Spencer Rattler, and that just immediately makes me go, yep, I already know. I mean, I know that's what you have to say with South Carolina, but, like, how often do we hear that? And how often is it, like, just forget that I said that. Yeah, if Spencer Rattler has, like, the game of his life and Georgia turns it over 15 times and I'm being a little silly with that. But, yeah, no doubt in my mind Georgia wins this game. But you never know. I mean, hey, if Spencer Rattler has a good game and some things go wonky, maybe. But I just can't pick anybody other than, like, a top tier. Like, you need to put the Texas or Ohio State or, somebody along those lines right now up against Georgia for me to even pause before picking the Dogs right now.
Also, by the way, with Georgia, they continue to roll. And that game, it'd be just kind of fun to see if South Carolina can move the ball a little bit against what Georgia might be. By the way, Pittsburgh, not only do they have this week West Virginia, they just lost, as you mentioned, Craig, to Cincinnati. They play 20th ranked North Carolina. They get into the ACC next week. So they're kind of in a little bit of a need a win, or all of a sudden they're looking up at 1-3.
And another reason why I picked North Carolina is just coming off that App State game and, coming out of by the skin of their teeth. And I just feel like I don't know. I feel like they're a shade better. They've been tested now a little bit as well, and obviously have the premier quarterback. So that's another part of why that they're a little more battle-tested, UNC now having played South Carolina and Appalachian State. But, yeah, I mean, rough start. That opening week I was 0 for 5. It's just awful. But those, that was LSU, FSU. That was Tech in Wyoming. I thought I'd at least get that one, but thanks, Joey. gotta get me one back at some point. But yeah, we're all in need of a big week, and I think this is the quietest week we're probably gonna have, right? I mean, as far as
someone will go 5-0 this week.
I just feel like the handful of games are gonna be every week now from here on out. This is probably the lull before conference play starts and everything gets really haywire. So looking forward to that.
Week 1,
it was pretty tough.
Week 1, Garrett went 0-5, and you went 0-5. Smokey and I each went 1-4.
Well, let's tell the game.
So we all picked TCU, got it wrong week 1.
Right.
I still don't regret that. I still would have picked them again, probably.
Yeah. 4 of us picked UTSA. Emory did not. He picked Houston. He got that one right.
And that came down to the very end of the game, yeah.
We all picked Tech. We all got it wrong. Craig and Garrett both were foolish and picked against the juggernaut that is Florida State.
Yeah,
and they got that wrong.
That was a bad pick.
And then we all picked Clemson, which was a terrible pick because Duke punched them. Like, they didn't punch them in the mouth. They punched them in the mouth, in the neck, in the stomach, in the back, like over and over and over again.
And shove the body parts some places.
But that shows you, like, the greatness of college football was the fact that you get those 5 games and in my case, I didn't really pour over, like, oh, my gosh, I can't pick. Oh, my gosh, I have such a hard time. Not that they were obvious choices either, but, I mean, I don't know. I think most people were picking TCU over Colorado. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Yeah. I don't think, Houston eking one out there. But yeah, I mean, that's why we love college football. That's why it's easier said than done. And, like I said, I need a bounce back this week, so we'll see how that goes. But that week 1 was wild, and that was why we love this sport. So happy to take some L's and be entertained by just how silly it all can be.
We'll have Max Olson today at 4. Taylor McHargue of ESPN. Oh, he has to want to talk about Rice and Houston. He's at 4:30. Craig's off the radar. And then again, Mickey Spagnola late in the 5 o'clock hour as we get to the start of the second week of the NFL season, Philadelphia, Minnesota tonight. And then also Brigham Young color analyst Hans Olsen will join us today in the early part, plus Paul's top 5 to close out the show. And this is 365 Sports. The city of Woodway, discoverwoodway.com. They have hotels if you are coming to Waco for any kind of a college football game. If you're one of the teams that you like that Baylor has hosted, including Texas a week from Saturday. But if you need a hotel and you're like, I can't find one, or whatever you're looking for, they have 7 hotels in the city of Woodway. You can find them online at discoverwoodway.com. Also, the featured event coming up pretty soon. It's a little bit over a month from now. It's 5 weeks from now, the first annual Father and Son Cookout, October 21st from 11 a.m. until 1 o'clock. Join Woodway Family Center and Discover Woodway for the first annual Father and Son Cookout. Burgers, hot dogs from Double Our Burgers, a great place to get hamburgers. Ice cream from Heritage Creamery. Field day fun with bounce houses, kind of like they have in Orlando. Kickball, photo op, photo booth, and much more. Saturday, October 21st from 11 until 1, the first annual Father and Son Cookout. Go to discoverwoodway.com for more information on how you can enter to be a part of that competition.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
There is a college game tonight. Bethune-Cookman plays at Miami. Miami coming off and in the top 25 at 22 after the win against Texas A&M, and look good doing it, especially showing off some of the glitz and glamour, their speed, big playmaking ability. Quarterback Van Dyke played great. 5 touchdown passes. Bethune-Cookman tonight, 6:30 against Miami. Also, this nugget. Michigan State's they've had a long stretch of bad. So they said they were different. This was not the same old Michigan State. Of course, a lot of people have cross-checked them on that because of how they let this thing kind of progress, and then they wanted to do a hearing during a bye week, etc. Well, Mel Tucker's done. It's just a matter of time. Although he might have himself a pretty good lawsuit, too. So why did Mark D'Antonio leave Michigan State? You remember?
Yeah. They had a gigantic scandal. Or not a gigantic. I mean, they had a scandal surrounding Mark D'Antonio. I was kind of surprised to see him being brought back in.
He's now a part of the Michigan State coaching staff to help the interim, who is, of course, now taken over because Mel Tucker is on, for right now, suspension. So Mark D'Antonio back at Michigan State. I was surprised to see that because he went out with kind of a little bit of a dark cloud. He did not, by any means, seemed like he was going to take any kind of the heat, kind of didn't take any of the blame at Michigan State. This was, of course, after the Nassar deal. Hell of a coach. He was the coach when Michigan State and Baylor had an incredible Cotton Bowl up in Arlington back after the 2014 season. But here he is back at Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's puzzling. I don't know how you sit there and say that out of one side of your mouth and then go do the complete opposite out of the other side of your mouth. But that's college athletics, and that's just human beings, I think, in positions of power more often than not. It's a puzzling, I guess, turn, but I mean, it also makes a lot of sense. I mean, who's better equipped to roll in there and try to keep it upright and keep it afloat than a guy who was there for as long as he was and knows the ins and outs as well as he does. So, I mean, to turn that direction after the way that it kind of came to a close is bizarre, and I don't know how you say that and you don't realize why that people would look at what you said and poke holes through it. But yeah, I guess just force it on through and get on the other side of having Mark D'Antonio. Let's worry about the questions later, I suppose. We just got to get somebody in there. It must have been what their thought was. But yeah, not too much of a change from old at all. Actually going straight, steering into the direction of the old, going completely against what they, released in whatever that statement was.
I don't know if it was the president or the AD that basically said Mark D'Antonio is a damn good football coach. He's also talked about him as a person, but he's back at Michigan State. That slid under my radar. I guess that happened either this week or whenever. I didn't see that, but I did notice the note came out earlier today.
I saw that he was going to be in an advisory role, and then I had kind of forgotten until I saw the article about how he had interfered in sexual misconduct investigations and all the different things that had happened at the end of his tenure there at Michigan State, and which is why he ultimately decided to retire. A big part of the reason he decided to ultimately retire. So yeah, they're oh no, we're not the Michigan State of old, but the guy that. The last coach who had to resign that opened this job up for Mel Tucker also had a problem. They have got they don't have a crisis management department. They seemingly have a crisis creation department at Michigan State.
Yeah, they do have a mess. There is one other college game. Thanks in the chat room. I was looking at the teams in the top 25. Navy at Memphis tonight. That game will kick off. That's actually the game on ESPN, that Miami game, and Bethune-Cookman is on the ACC network. So Navy tonight playing on the road against Memphis. When we come back, national columnist Max Olson, Taylor McHargue, off the radar. Also, Hans Olsen, Brigham Young color analyst, top 5 with Paul, and much more. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pipe, steel, and metal. 1943, they opened their doors, and they're now bigger, better, faster, and stronger than everything else they've ever had, and they were always really good to stay in business through whatever the ups and downs were going on around the country when it comes to the economy or the price of the product that they sell. Now with a brand new location that's almost a year old on Loop 340 and Highway 6 on the east side of I-35. Braden Embry is their marketing manager, office manager, and does a great job. And they also do a great job. They still believe in the old handshake, right? You may not see that as much anymore. They also have been in business since 1943 because they take care of you with the product they have for you, but making sure you're happy so you don't go buy once, but you buy many times. They have now new loading docks and bays where it's so much more efficient, and it was already pretty good at their old location where you don't have to wait around very often. If you bring your trailer or an 18-wheeler or your pickup truck, they will get you with what you bought inside of whatever you're hauling, how you're hauling it, to where you're going to go, whether you're a weekend warrior contractor or a professional contractor. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing, and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code STICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sick'em sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations that will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, PettyClinicLowT.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Max Olson, theathletic.com, senior college football writer, joins us on 365 Sports. And Max, we kind of had a few stories to light up the day that all of a sudden Jay Norvell spoke, and here comes Colorado. And, is the gift that keeps on giving?
I saw an interview that Charlotte Sanders, Deion's son, did, I think, with Pat McAfee today. And he asked what all of us were asking, like, why do these guys keep doing it? Why do they keep making it so easy for us? Just show up and play Colorado, right? We don't have to talk about it. And not that, obviously Matt Rule actually didn't really say anything about Deion Sanders, but, they're on high alert to turn anything into motivation. And, Jay Norvell made that easy for him. And, it was already amazing that College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff were locked in for Colorado State, Colorado. But, maybe a couple extra eyeballs off this.
Max, would it surprise you to see them next week be able to go toe-to-toe with USC, especially offensively?
Yeah, that's interesting. So they got Oregon next.
Oh, yeah, Oregon next. That's what I meant. Yeah, Oregon.
Yeah. They're going to Oregon next, and then SC at home. But honestly, guys, like with the way this, first of all, 3-0 would be, quite an achievement if they, assuming they get past Colorado State. I think for where Colorado's at, we certainly know that offensively there's a ton of firepower there. There's things that they've got to fine tune a little bit, but Shedur's leading the nation in passing yards per game. Certainly, it's a very effective offense. Defensively, I thought they were better in the second game. They were able to get enough stops and do their job, obviously, and didn't have that many busts. But I kind of wonder when you go to Austin, like if that game is like it's like a 63 to 45 kind of game or something, or 50 or whatever. Like if that 70 to 63 kind of a big time shootout or something, maybe you'd be happy about that. I don't know. I'm sure there's no moral victories with them, but I bet they feel like they can get into a shootout and play with these really good Pac-12 teams, and we're going to find out really soon here. I feel like they probably think they can score with the best of them, and we'll see offensively can they do enough to protect Shedur and continue to be this explosive against obviously better defenses.
Max, what have these first couple of games in this recent contest against Colorado told you about Matt Rule and Nebraska?
Yeah, long road ahead. I went over to their post-practice press conference today, and you could tell the mood was kind of down with Matt Rule. That there's just a lot of work to be done here in terms of teaching these guys how to win and how to respond to losses. And it's just kind of a weird quirk to the schedule that they start the season with 2 road games against Minnesota and Colorado here, as opposed to just kind of getting what. This week they get Northern Illinois at home. That probably should have been their season opener, and you kind of have all the elation of that first game and all that stuff. But it's kind of a different mood, different vibe here, rolling into your first home game as head coach at 0-2. And I think it's it's very unclear if Jeff Sims is going to be playing against Northern Illinois, and that's concerning for sure. And I think that they know they've got to be really, really good. They've got to be really clean and mistake free and not shoot themselves in the foot to win games right now. And they've made too many mistakes in these first 2 games. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be like year 1 at Baylor. I don't know if it'll be that bottomed out, but certainly it's going to be a tough road ahead.
You believe that there are some that feels like he tears down a program to its basically core, and even maybe tears out the concrete on the floor, so that year 2 looks a lot better. I'm not saying he loses on purpose, but that's what he did at Temple. That's what he obviously did at Nebraska. I mean, at Baylor. I don't know if he can do that. And he's got to show, not that they're going to get rid of him, but he's got to show a little bit more than that this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like I think he really does like the veteran players on this team. I think they want to win with these guys. They want to win for those guys. This is not like he inherited like an extremely dysfunctional locker room and is having to kick people off the team and all this kind of stuff. Like I think they are inherited a team that has not done much winning over the last few years and has a lot they have to figure out in terms of being consistent and being a lot better in every way. But no, I don't think they're trying to go 2-10 or 1-11 by any means here. I think they're trying to win with what they've got here and try to make the best of it, try to get this thing to a bowl game. I don't think they inherited a ton. I think it's going to take really good team football to win games, but certainly I wouldn't say the Big Ten West has looked incredible so far. So I think they're going to have a chance to potentially win 2 in a row here going into the Michigan game, and then you got to be able to rebound from the Michigan game and go find a way to win some close games in league play.
Max, what are they going to do at quarterback? Are they going to do it like they did after Jeff Sims got hurt and rotate the 2 guys, or do they have a starter for sure?
Yeah, no, not for sure on that. It's seeming pretty questionable or maybe unlikely that Jeff Sims is going to play this week with the injury he suffered against Colorado. I think that probably Heinrich Harburg would be the first one off the bench there. He's the one who kind of got some good reps against Colorado late, led a touchdown drive. I think Chubba Purdy's just been dealing with an injury, and so I think they're getting him back. But I'm not saying he's out for this game, but I think Harburg probably has a little bit of advantage there. Just he's had a chance to get more practice reps this week and stuff like that. And that's they're going to have to be able to figure out a way to run the ball and figure out a way to overcome the fact that they really do not have much in the way of good game experience when it comes to Harburg or Purdy.
Max, you covered Texas for a long time, got to see them up close and personal, got to see some big wins, big non-conference wins, also got to see some falls. But what were your thoughts coming out of that impressive win over the Tide in Tuscaloosa last Saturday night?
Yeah, pretty incredible. I mean, really, what can you say? Like that was a masterful job by Steve Sarkisian in terms of having that team ready to play, calling as good of a game plan as he's ever called, and the execution by Quinn Ewers. I think that was kind of the question mark for me, was just, could he do it? Could he handle this stage, this spotlight, this defense, and go out there and play his best? And he truly did. He played the best he's ever played in a Texas uniform. And, I think it's one of those performances. Like it does remind me a little bit of a year ago, though, where I think Texas gave everything they got when Alabama came to Austin a year ago. And that was as good as I'd seen them in a long time. And so the challenge is just consistency and doing it every week and doing it in the 11 a.m. game when you're the big favorite. You don't necessarily care as much as you did when you're playing the night game in Tuscaloosa, right? Like you got to figure out a way to I think they'll probably still end up in some close games in the Big 12. That's just how it is. And so, the question of whether they're a playoff team or not will really come down to, can you avoid losing the games you shouldn't lose? And they're probably going to be favorite in pretty much every game ahead here. So, fascinated to see where they go on this journey, but that was a big time achievement, and certainly the most impressive Texas has been in a long time.
Who were you most what side of the ball were you most impressed with, their offense or defense?
Good question. Probably, I mean, they did a lot of things right on defense. I think certainly we probably should have questioned Jalen Milroe a little bit more and just how ready he was. I thought you saw just how effectively Texas was able to spy him. And for whatever reason, Alabama doesn't build much of a design run game around Milroe, which is confusing to me. So I thought defensively they were up for the task for sure. But I just think offensively, man, you couldn't do it better than that. You really couldn't. I mean, I know they had a couple of miscues here and there, but overall I thought Ewers was super composed and really, accurate. And they were just so explosive, and I think, good balance run pass. I mean, the ability to hit those explosive plays downfield and then finish the game with running all that clock off and running the ball and being physical. Like, I was just another thing I just wasn't really totally sure where they were at going into week 2 here. And man, what a statement.
You mentioned they use the spy. There can be some teams that have a spy, but you have to have the guy that can still be able to go lateral with someone like Milroe or whoever's a running quarterback. And not many teams can actually do that.
Right. And not many teams can just go, it kind of plug in a 5-star true freshman like they did with Anthony Hill in that game. I mean, it reminded you a little bit of what we saw from Harold Perkins last year at LSU, where, you put him in some pretty big-time snaps there, especially on third down, and you're trusting a very, very, physically talented but young guy to go out and see the ball and make some plays. And I thought Anthony Hill was pretty incredible in that game, very bright future for him. That was a huge get for them to take him away from Texas A&M. And, I think Pete Kwiatkowski and his defense deserve a lot of credit. I think those guys do a really good job. And certainly they have built up not just good talent. We know they have blue chip talent, but they've developed those guys. They've got depth now. And I think you watch them in those big games when these guys care, when they're really playing, like it's everybody attacking the ball. It's good tackling. It's pretty impressive to see.
Max, when did you start putting coaches on hot seats?
Feels a little early. I mean, I think probably this weekend, we've got a pretty intriguing, and it's not the greatest schedule in the world this weekend when you go through it, especially with a lack of top 25 showdowns and stuff. But I think Tennessee, Florida will be interesting to watch because I think Billy Napier is somebody that has got to put a good year together here. I think the same, obviously, you're certainly hearing a lot of Jimbo talk this week. And honestly, guys, when I look at their schedule, what's it going to take for Jimbo Fisher to be fine there? Like, do you think it's going to take 9 wins?
Yeah, something along. No less than 8. That's for sure.
I would say 8-4 is the lower level.
Yeah, I think that's probably. And at this point in the tenure, if you go 8-4 and say, well, I'll replace DJ Durkin, I'm not sure that really plays with people. I think you got to go better than this with the talent they've got. And, as frustrating as that Miami game was, clearly they've got a quarterback. I think Wigman looks awesome. And so, and that offense with Evan Stewart and Noah Thompson, the players they've got, playmakers they've got, I think there's some really good pieces there. So I think the expectations should be pretty high, but man, you look at that schedule and it's just you go down and all right, if you say they can only lose 2 more games, which ones do you circle? I think it's in a very treacherous spot now where they've got to go rip off a lot of wins in SEC play.
Yeah, they're we don't know a lot about Auburn yet, and that's their first SEC game, and then I think after that, I think maybe you'll start to see the tide swing one way or the other on Jimbo. If they go beat an Auburn team with a coach in the first year and a transfer quarterback who hasn't played that well yet, then maybe people will back off of them. But then, if they don't play well in that game, then I think that, the torches start lighting in College Station.
Yeah, well, you go look at the schedule. The idle week is October 21st, and they got ULM this week, but then it's Auburn, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee. If you're 4-3 going into that bye week, after playing Alabama, Tennessee back to back and on the road in Knoxville, I think people are going to be pretty uncomfortable. So I'm very, very interested to see. Yeah, can they take care of business against Auburn and Arkansas and show up for these really big games? We got the big. I feel like we've kind of got that crossroad moment coming now a little bit, not just because they lost to Miami, but just kind of because of the way the schedule sets up.
Max Olson with us, 365 Sports, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak.
Max, Miami did show out last week in a way that they have not in a long time. And they showed some athleticism that they have not showed in a long time. When is it proper to say, Mario Cristobal might have done something here?
Yeah, it's still early in the tenure, but clearly they've got Paul shaking in his Florida State boots over there, so that's encouraging, right?
Yeah.
No, I think it's I think you saw some good signs from Miami over the weekend. I think Tyler Van Dyke, it looks like he's kind of back on track in Shannon Dawson's offense. I think the offensive line certainly looks improved And that's a group that they've got some very talented guys up front. You know that they're going to with Mario Cristobal. I think they made a good DC hire. Obviously, that game was pretty wild, but that's a huge one for just Miami and the feeling that there's some positive momentum there. And can they show up in some of these big ACC games? We'll see. If they're really good, then that makes that it makes that race a lot more interesting in that league. But yeah, I think if you're a Miami fan, you're feeling like this thing is finally kind of pointing in a better direction after a lot of rough games last year.
How would a win by West Virginia against an arch rival Pitt, other than it's a win, they need one, they'd be 2-1. How much would that help Neil Brown, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it would help a ton. And I think this is a West Virginia team that, acquitted itself fairly well against Penn State. I thought that was, for how talented this Penn State team is, they're certainly one of the three best teams in the Big Ten. I thought West Virginia held up pretty well in that game. And, I think that they got a chance here against Pitt. I do think they have a chance to win this game. They need it. And it feels like it's a team that's still kind of figuring out the identity a little bit coming out of the Penn State game. But certainly I think Neil Brown knows going into this year, he was given this year, he's given this chance to kind of prove that this thing's pointed back in the right direction. And, I think in terms of making a statement here and taking some pressure off would be huge.
Do you think that Oklahoma can just go on business as usual, or do you think there was a little crack created last week with the whole ordeal of Art Briles being on the field with Jeff Lebby and the massive reaction that there was to that?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that Oklahoma fans already did not seem super pleased by the offense and just by the offensive coordinator prior to that thing, popping up. And so, I really like what they've got. I mean, I know the SMU game was frustrating in some ways. It was closer than Oklahoma fans wanted it to be, but I like what they've built on both sides of the ball. I think Oklahoma is going to be one of the more improved teams in the country if they're well coached this year, because I think the talent, the roster flip that Venables has done, I think is encouraging. I think they have every reason to be better. We'll see if Dylan Gabriel can kind of take his play to another level this year. But I like what they've got, and so if they underwhelm, it's going to, I think the pressure is going to be pointed to the coaches and not necessarily the talent there. And so, it's certainly, you get the sense just based on the reaction from Joe Castiglione that definitely crossed the line. That was a much stronger statement than I expected from him late at night on that whole deal. And so, I think that Oklahoma is going to be fine, but certainly. The stakes are a little bit different here for Jeff Lebby.
Yeah, I wonder what the parameters were on Briles. Perhaps he doesn't need to be a practice or whatever, but in this case, Castiglione making that statement at night, either one, he was really pissed, or number two, he needed to respond that way, even if that's not what was the parameter, because the fan base seemed to be pretty caught up in along with the media too. So it's weird. And then, of course, Lebby responded.
You certainly get the sense that Castiglione and Venables thought that was never going to happen.
Yeah, like that was just a given without maybe even having to say anything about it. Max, great. Thanks for your time, as always. Appreciate your segments when we get them. And I know you're busy. We appreciate your time on 365 Sports.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And that's Max Olson, senior writer for theathletic.com. I mentioned this yesterday, but the story by Bruce Feldman in theathletic.com on the business manager partner when it comes to promotions and marketing, what she has brought to the table, where she started with Deion Sanders in Colorado, with Snoop Dogg and many others. It's a great story about someone I'd never really heard of. Probably should have if I'd been more involved in the entertainment business. But it's just a great story about how they have put a lot of this together with what Colorado's getting. And someone asked in the chat room when we had a picture that are the players wearing practice jerseys with their social media accounts. Yes, on their back of the jerseys. That's really a very smart thing. That's part of the, just kind of letting guys be a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's just promoting your guys is what it is. And it's a different way of doing it. I don't know. I know I saw them do that. I don't know if I've seen others do that as well. I feel like there's been sort of, various programs trying to find ways as best they can to promote like the individual far more than they ever have before. But that was one of the first examples that you saw of like, okay, yeah, that's different. That's kind of wild. It sort of takes a second to sort of adjust to like, wait, what? The social handles, but it's incredibly smart. And I haven't read that article. I think that, I think Colorado's still probably overwhelmed. I don't think that they could have expected that they'd be getting, as much as you were positive about the attention you would be getting, I feel like with all of the media, like 3 weeks in a row of Big Noon and like college, did they have enough people on staff to like, were they prepared for like this tsunami of attention, or not? But they've, gotten a lot of it, and they're going to get more of it. I think that ideas like that are what can separate you, especially when you're having success and players see that. They see that you're winning. They see like, oh, that's cool. They're doing social media, and especially for like, I can't relate because, dude, I've tweeted like 3 times this entire week, like literally the entire week. And so I'm just not, somebody that's on there all day long, every single day. But, it's important. And for some people, like 20-year-olds, like that's what they want to do when they grow up. They just want, like, what do you want to do? I want to be a social media star, whatever that is, like just a star. And I can't relate to that much, but for 17-year-olds who the whole livelihood is, outside of reality is all online and social media and your handle and your brand or, whatever else, then yeah, that's a program that would be that much more appealing to you, I would think.
Well, it's embracing promoting players, which has been something that the NCAA has run away from or taken advantage of for a very long time. And, to its detriment in the long term, obviously, but they had a certain way of doing it that was kind of counterintuitive to promoting the entire brand. There were many years where the Heisman Trophy winner is coming back, and if you'd ask college football if that was happening, they'd be like, "No, he's another player, just like everybody else. Let's not give this poor guy a big head here." Then when you have to look at the leagues that are successful, they promote like, "Hey, you need to watch LeBron James because he's different." And now we're getting to see a point where yes, let's make Caleb Williams a big deal because he's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like let's enjoy it while we have it, and so. To whatever degree you can promote yourself and whatever, they need to do that and make the athletes feel like they are part of this, because that's where it came to the complaints of the athletes, and rightfully so, that like, well, they're making money off me. Why can't I make money off of me? And, promoting their TikTok handle is really a drop in the bucket for everything else for most of these guys.
Wouldn't you love to see Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, Vince Lombardi? And again, some of those guys were good because they were always ahead of the curve. But see, those coaches coming back, Lombardi was pro, walk in the door to go watch Ohio State or whoever practice and go, what the hell's going on here?
What do you mean?
The music alone would
because
probably
of who they were
them.
and where they were when the time was 40, 50 years ago in college football, and see the changes from not only NIL, the transfer portal, but also the value of putting someone's social media up on their practice.
Social media and the internet didn't exist.
Yeah.
So like I know you do like any industry from 40, 50 years ago, and they'd be amazed. But I see what you're saying. I don't think they would grasp it though.
Yeah.
I don't think they wouldn't understand the concept of what's the internet, what's TikTok, it would blow their minds because it wouldn't be recognizable outside of the sport.
I think the funny part would be like Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler going like, "Oh, we paid this kid $100,000 to go to." So what? You're just saying that out loud?
Yeah,
so we can do that now. Whoa!
That's definitely.
So
a
who
big
did it? Like, so you had a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy drive a car near a restaurant near his house and put it in the trash can, and then his car came around and got it. And that's what you did. Like, no. This guy who donated a bunch of money, he owns a chicken restaurant, and he's going to do some endorsements for that chicken restaurant. Like, what? They're going to live? Yeah. No, it's totally legal.
No, it is. It is totally legal from back with whatever they were doing back in the day. All right, Taylor McHargue of ESPN around the corner.
Well, you know the story about John David Crow, right? And his little payoff, don't you, Smokey?
I don't know.
That's back in the day of Bear Bryant, when Bear Bryant was coaching at A&M. There's long rumors that a helicopter flew over John David Crow's farm in Louisiana and dropped out a bag of money onto the farm.
That never was something that happened to me. No one just dropped money down wherever I was living.
Well, you were not the best athlete in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah. There's still a lot of misconception or a lot of misinformation on the Eric Dickerson Trans Am and the house and all of that, and everyone wants to bring SMU really never did any of that. It was A&M who was doing all of that.
A&M did it while they were just there.
Yes, exactly, and they still didn't end up getting him as he ended up at SMU.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see who would thrive. Like a Barry Switzer would probably be pretty good in this era because he could, just not have to worry about breaking rules, basically. He could just go and sign up guys, but I mean, I understand the question. I just think it's just so wildly different. I mean, to explain the concepts, I think would be hard for people from 40 years ago to even wrap their head around. And the players' rights. I mean, certainly, I don't know that all those guys would love that. To be perfectly honest with you, I think some of them. I don't know how big some of them were on segregation, depending on how far you go back.
Yep.
So much less like guys having TikTok handles and being the face of the program and all that. It's a totally different world from back then, and it'd be fascinating to see kind of what that interaction would even be. But it's for the better of the athlete. You have to give Deion credit that he is somebody that's changing the game, like he said that he would, and like people expected that he would. And whether it's a small thing like putting social media handles on jerseys, which I don't know if they were the first to do that. I know they're not the only one to do that at this point, because I feel like I've definitely seen that somewhere else. At least a team or two has done something along those lines. But regardless, I mean, that's the kind of forward thinking that you have to. That you want to have from somebody in charge leading you into the future, because they can kind of see what's coming down and what matters to the athletes in the long run, as opposed to people who never really gave any consideration to what the athletes would have liked or how they would want their jerseys. They just did what they were told, right? So it is a much different era in that regard.
It sure is. Taylor McHargue, ESPN. Oh, my goodness. He's going to want to talk about Rice and their win against Houston, but also the college football weekend, as we talk every Thursday with him from ESPN at 4:30, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, great pricing, and, just great deals and great offers. They've got a lot of different vehicles on the lot right now over at Richard Carr, whether that be brand new vehicles or the pre-owned selections, of which they've got a bevy of those. And they've also, of course, got their award-winning service department. But right now it's a bit of a construction mess in front of the dealership. They've torn up Highway 6. They're expanding it, and it's just a whole big deal. You can drive by and miss Richard Carr if you're not careful because of all the construction going on, piles of dirt and all that good stuff. But they can be found, and they want to make it worth your while when you do head on over there and get yourself around that construction. They want to make it easier to buy a new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac. And right now, qualified buyers can save $7,000 on new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s. Qualified buyers can finance for 0.9% financing. And they've got dozens of Sierras on the lot. They've got the inventory, they've got the pricing, they've got the financing, and they want to get you into a new GMC Sierra today. And if you're military or first responder, you can save an additional $500. They've also got the Buick lineup of SUVs, perfect combination of first-class luxury and value, ranked #1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers. Buick offers amazing value right now. Save thousands on a new full-size 2023 Buick Enclave, or save $4,000 on a 2023 midsize Buick Envision. They've also got the ability for you to go in there and buy a pre-owned vehicle as well. Their financing goal, again, 100% credit approval, and they've got dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks on the lot for you to check out today, plus their award-winning service department, which is standing by to keep you on the road with good peace of mind. And right now, they cannot be beat on tires, offering a price match guarantee on the lowest price comparable tires in town. So service your car or truck with the people that you can count on. For 24 years in Central Texas, run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears, log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? by not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference, and that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
So I texted Taylor earlier this week, and I just said, we just don't have time for you this week. There's nothing really to talk about. There's absolutely nothing in your past that would bring up anything of interest other than games you have this weekend. And Taylor said, I'll drive to Waco, sit in your studio, and I will boycott. Taylor McHargue of ESPN joins us on 365 Sports. Have you worn anything but Rice jerseys all week long?
We filmed All-American, our show at the American Conference yesterday, and I really had every intention to put on my old uniform. But very humbling to put on your football uniform 10 years later, and we decided that was not going to end up on camera. But, yes, I have been in some form of Rice gear all week, and I have Rice this weekend. So at some point I'm going to have to drop my fandom and my love for that school. I guess it'll be sometime right around kickoff.
Taylor, what did that game mean to Rice, and what does it mean for Dana Holgorsen at Houston?
Well, for Rice, it means that they legitimately have a chance if you look at their next few weeks. I think there's a real clear path where if they beat the teams that they should and the games that they're favored, that Rice could make a bowl game in their first year in the American Conference. And Rice made a bowl game last year, the first one under head coach Mike Bloomgren, but they did that at 5-7 and ultimately ended the season with a losing record. So everything, all the messaging in the offseason and the messaging so far from Rice is that they feel like they're ready to take the next step. And part of that was you had to beat some teams that you weren't going to be favored against. Rice has a really tough stretch of their schedule where they play SMU, Tulane, and UTSA back to back, and so they need to get some of these wins early in the season before they go through that stretch. But that was a huge first step for them. On the other side, obviously, and I'm looking at the same stuff everybody else is, but Dana Holgorsen, fans around that program are frustrated, clearly, and it's not just losing to your rival and losing to Rice, but I think it goes back to performance in the back half of last season. Even though they beat UTSA in week 1, it was kind of a sloppy game, and it was closer than I think they expected it to be in their first year in the Big 12. And if you look around the Big 12, even with some of the teams that are struggling more than we expected, I think it's safe to say Houston may be the worst team in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. I mean, we'll see what Baylor does eventually, but West Virginia as well. But yeah, I think that you're onto something with that. And it just seems like there's not a lot of positive energy there for that program right now. Taylor, everybody's talked Texas, Alabama to death at this point, but I mean, with you being a former quarterback, I was curious about your thoughts. Obviously, Quinn Ewers was, from the quarterback's perspective, very good. Jalen Milroe, deep balls, awesome. A lot of the other stuff was very hit or miss. Just from a QB's perspective, how did you view those two last weekend in that monster game?
Yeah, well, look, I would take a 30,000-foot view and take a step back on the SEC in general, and I think the SEC quarterback play this year is pretty poor. And you look across the conference, usually in the last few years, there's been a first-round draft pick or two in the SEC, and that's a big reason why they've had so much success. But it's just not there this year. The top quarterback play is in conferences like the Big 10, the Big 12, and the Pac-12. I thought the piece that stood out to me the most for Quinn Ewers against Rice, 0 for 7 on passes beyond 15 yards. They just didn't hit any shot plays. And obviously they corrected some of that against Alabama. And that's when you need to do it, right? It's far more important for you to hit your explosives against Alabama than it is against Rice. And I thought that was the step that you hoped that you would see out of Quinn Ewers if you're a Texas fan, and they certainly did. And now, look, I mean, these odds, it doesn't mean anything until they go out and perform, but now they are right there tied with Ohio State with the best odds in the country to make the playoff just in week 2. So I think the hype train is obviously full speed ahead for Texas, and they've got a couple tests coming up. I think they're coming to Baylor for their opener in Big 12 play in a couple weeks, and then obviously Oklahoma. But again, the hype train is well on its way for Texas.
What did you see? And I, in my opinion, I saw just a team that kind of just hung together, especially when they fell behind, which a lot of teams would have crumbled in Tuscaloosa. They didn't blink. What did you see differently from Texas winning a game like this early than perhaps other years in the last decade?
Yeah, I think a couple things. Number one, people made a mistake for the last few years that the Texas is back joke, where the talent that Texas has on its roster now is different than what they've had since 2009. And there's been stretches where certainly there were 5 stars on the team, but from a depth perspective, especially up front, offensive and defensive line, man, they are stacked. And that gives you the opportunity to be in every single game, no matter who you're playing. And then the other piece that's just more of what you want to see out of a team is they believe. I mean, you could just tell watching them, and especially going back and you just talked about coming from behind and fighting through adversity. That to me stood out because that was not something we've seen from Texas for a long time. And it just points out again that they truly believe in the guys that they have, the staff that they have, and they've got one goal, and it's winning the Big 12, being undefeated, and making it to the college football playoff. That is the key goal for them.
Taylor, if you look at Texas A&M, the offense certainly looks better, but everything else doesn't look better. What do you think is the future for them this season?
Yeah, their secondary is certainly taking a step backwards. And some of that was guys that they had gotten through the hell of splashes in NIL and 5 stars that had come in that were young. A lot of those guys moved on. And I thought the secondary is going to be a challenge for them all year. Now, Miami on the other side is a much better Miami team than the Miami team that came to Kyle Field last year. I think A&M they are improved as well, but this is not a playoff contender. This is at best, middle of the pack SEC West team that I think their ceiling is 9 wins. And I think, the floor for them is probably 6 wins. It'll be somewhere in there. But this is not going to be a team that I think you see regularly upset teams that they're not favored against.
Taylor McHargue, former Rice quarterback with us, college football analyst with us on 365 Sports. So when anybody in the group of 5, in particular UTSA with a nice bounce-back win after the loss to Houston, which I know just eats away at Jeff Traylor, is there anybody in the group of 5 right now, Tulane and anyone else other than Tulane, that jump out at you?
Yeah, there is. And it's actually, I had some things get switched around last week, and so I got to see them in person. SMU, they played at Oklahoma, and they had the better quarterback at SMU than Oklahoma did. Preston Stone outplayed Dylan Gabriel for basically that entire game. And they've got some depth at the group of 5 level. Oklahoma, now again, it was against Arkansas State, but Oklahoma hung 73 points, pitched a shutout on defense in their opener. And all of the things that you saw that offense did well, SMU took all of that away. Oklahoma in the second half decided we're just going to have to run the ball right at these guys because we can push them around some physically, and that's what they did. But I thought that was alarming that, Rhett Lashley said in his post-game presser, we did not give up the explosive plays to them. We made them earn it, and he was exactly right. And for SMU, they have an opportunity now where they still have TCU to play. But after that, I think there is a legitimate chance if they were to upset TCU, which I'm not even sure that would be an upset at this point. If they upset TCU and run the gauntlet in conference play, that's going to be your top group of 5 team, especially with just a close loss to Oklahoma. Now, that's a lot to ask of a team,
Sure.
But I thought they have the capability and the talent. And also it's just a team that I don't think a lot of people are talking about yet.
And I don't know this, Taylor, and I probably should. When you were at Rice, did they run any of the flex bone or the bone, anything like that, or was that passed?
No, when we played SMU, they had it was right at the tail end of the June Jones era, and so they were back to slinging it around all over the place. That's when Garrett Gilbert had transferred from Texas and over to SMU, and Kyle Padron, these guys where they were throwing it around and going to bowl games, but they weren't. The big difference from then to now is, for people that haven't followed this stuff, they have a ton of money committed to the football program that wasn't even just 10 years ago. And upgrades in facilities, massive backing in the NIL game. Obviously, you saw the commitments that got them into the ACC, where they're just waiving their revenue dollars for 9 years, and they're not even concerned about it. They're like, we've got the money and the backing to do it. And in modern college football, that's what you have to be relevant. So I think people need to be prepared. Look, if you drop them in the ACC this year, I think they're not in the bottom 5. They're better than 5 or 6 teams in the ACC right now. And I think people need to get prepared for they will compete earlier than people probably give them credit for in the ACC.
Did you yourself, when you were at Rice, was that past any of the time when they ran the bone or anything option, or were you a part of that when you were at Rice?
No, we had some lingering guys that were older that had been recruited by Ken Hatfield to run the option, but by the time I got there, Bailiff had been there for a couple of years. Okay,
I was going to ask you about what it's like to run something like that, knowing your opponent only has 3 or 4 practices, if that many, to get ready for it. Memphis is playing Navy tonight. They've played before, but I was curious about that. But that answered my question. All right, just one more time. Where did you play college football?
Rice University, a big win, and looking forward to. I've got them this week against Texas Southern. They'll be favorites, and the opportunity to get to 2-1, which, as you guys know, Rice having a winning record in non-conference in September, that is not normally how it goes. So there's a lot of positive momentum, and I'm very happy for Coach Bloomgren and his team.
You should be, and a proud alum, Taylor McHargue, ESPN with us, college football analyst, on Thursdays at 4:30. I mean, he ought to be happy. He ought to be excited.
Absolutely.
I mean, nice win for them against your crosstown rival. And you wonder, I know it's sometimes certain teams, like, they're not our rival, But I mean, it's a turf war in
they're
Houston.
like miles
Absolutely.
apart. It's they got the Bayou Bucket. It's a whole thing. Yeah,
Yep.
it's not some fraudulent rivalry. It's a real deal rivalry, and Rice hadn't won it in a while, and they went out and they won it. In big fashion, and I agree with him. I don't come out of there necessarily just thinking about Rice because I don't, but I do wonder about Houston and just sort of the trajectory that they're on. And when we're talking about, hot seats and things like that, I know Dana said this offseason of like, well, my buyout's huge. I'm not worried about it. But, I mean, you talk about losing fan bases and just, kind of the situation in Waco right now where everybody's kind of on pins and needles as far as just needing to win. They got a win against UTSA, and I think it masked things for like a week.
Yep.
And then turn right around, you're like, oh, no, everything's exactly the way that it was. We just eked out a win over UTSA. And you realize the way that it was not great. And so, yeah, that's going to be a situation to monitor depending on how the wins and losses go for the Cougars. But a huge opportunity this weekend. I mean, against TCU at home, first Big 12 game. We don't know how good TCU is. I think they're better than Houston. But, that's a game. You go and win that, and that'll cool things down for at least a little while because that would be a massive win for not only Holgerson, but just the program in general to jump out to 1-0 in the Big 12. So that's an important game for them and, one that I'm very curious about.
By the way, if you were one of those wondering about the clock rules, the new rules in college football, Chris Hummer and Ross Dellinger, a couple of different tweets that came out a little bit ago. Craig's Off the Radar is next. Through 2 full weeks of college football, the new clock rules doing exactly as intended. Decreasing the games by 3 or 4 offensive snaps, 6 or 7 total plays counting special teams, and about 5 minutes of total time. So I thought it would be more plays than that. I thought maybe between 8 to 12, at least through the first couple of weeks. So really not much of a difference, but subtly, obviously, commercial time hasn't been affected.
Well,
but that's where they are.
Game last week was the kind of acme of foolishness when it came to, we're going to cut time to shorten TV. No, you cut time and sold more breaks, and then you sold minutes inside that. We had a sequence at the end of the first quarter last week between Baylor and Utah.
This was such BS,
It
man.
was
Yeah,
so
it was
ridiculous.
awful.
So there were 8 seconds left, and an interception got thrown. So there's a change of possession. So they took a break.
Right.
One play was run, and the quarter was ended. So they took a break. Then a play happened that needed a review, so they took a break. And then a couple plays happened, and somebody got injured, and they took a break.
No, somebody got injured, and there was a turnover or a catch or something. They waited for the injury to play itself out, for the player to leave the field, and then after that announced there was a review of a play when they could have been doing that when the player was on the field.
Yeah, all those happened, and so we saw maybe 5 to 6 total plays in 20 minutes. It was a lot, it was a very long time between the actual end of the first quarter and when the second quarter, you could say, had really started rolling. It was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to shorten anything, work that out.
Yeah, I mean, the whole tending to an injured player and then waiting for that to be over to then go and review a play that you were intending to review was just stupid. I don't know if there was miscommunication or what, and it wasn't like a disrespectful thing like they couldn't go over this. Nobody would have noticed. Nobody would have noticed if they had gone to the side while he was injured and they had got
He also wasn't in the stretcher.
It wasn't like some big serious injury.
You know?
Yeah. So they're just sitting there, just waiting, not doing anything. And minutes are going by, and then finally he's up okay, let's go back to play. Nope, now we got to review it. And it was just like, what? Then what the hell were you doing the last few minutes? It was bizarre, but I understand the complaints about it. That's not why we're there. Is to watch the commercial breaks, but I haven't noticed a major difference. I mean, I feel games are still 4 hours long. Most of the ones that I watch, I know it hasn't made any difference for Baylor games. They're still long as all get out for whatever reasons. So, I'm sure others have had different experiences, and they have based on some of the feedback that I've seen. But, I haven't myself noticed and been like, wow, this is definitely different than what we've been watching. It's been negligible on my end. But obviously there has been some difference, and it has been noticeable for some people out there.
Off the Radar with Craig Smoak is next, and this is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. If you want something for what you need when it comes to tailgating Baylor and Texas next week at McLean Stadium, In fact, TexasBeefHouse.com, they came in last weekend, I guess it was, looked around, and there's going to be a tailgate coming up this week, coming up against Texas, where they will be heavily involved. Brian Etheridge and our partners, Colt Barber and Ashley Hodge, are working on that. Wagyu regular hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, Wagyu jalapeno and cheese summer sausage, garlic links with cheese, Wagyu ground beef, flat iron steak, fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, they have it. And of course, I've mentioned about the aged beef. It is different. What's the difference? Well, aged beef is not typically available to the public because of added cost and time of what it takes to make sure it's right. Texas Beef House, they have aged entire beef, the entire piece, the entire carcass. And then, of course, they have the choicest cuts of steak, approved, just absolute incredible texture, and also a flavor for all of the beef that you might eat. We had Aaron Duvall and his wife Jean in the studio back on Saturday. They went through the history of how they got involved in the business and how they're growing. It's incredible. TexasBeefHouse.com. They will deliver to 49 states. And by the way, all you have to do is go online. Samantha Duvall will handle your order. A lot of you have. We appreciate that, and they do too. At TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tyler in White House, Texas.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bars, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays, Thursdays at around 4:45. Take a look at a grab bag of stories from around, well, whatever is most notable, whether that's MLB or if that's college football. And we'll start with a little bit of college football. You know, a lot of people started tuning in when the Big 12 realignment saga was going on, and, you know, that has dissipated. That's calmed down tremendously as they got what they wanted. They got the four corner schools, and then we know the ACC was the next to move. So a lot of things happen in a very short amount of time, but there are some, you know, things still uncertain, and I don't have an update on Oregon State and Washington State and what's going to end up happening with them, but I did see Pete Thamel passed along, and this obviously is not, you know, as crazy as when we were once talking about, well, the Colorado said this and Arizona State said that. It's just not as much in our backyard, but I think we all do appreciate and respect the service academies. And there are a lot of AAC fans out there, and Pete Thamel putting out there about 20 minutes ago that Army and the AAC are continuing to progress in talks about Army joining the league as a football-only member, and that a realistic timeline for a potential decision would occur likely by the end of this month. So here we are, right at the midway point of September. Said there's optimism on both sides as they dive farther into details about, you know, how they would arrange all of this. And the Army-Navy game would be a non-conference game if Army joins the AAC and would still be played after the season. So there is Pete Thamel on the likelihood of Army becoming an AAC football-only member by the end of the month, and the status of what would happen with Army-Navy, it would stay as is, basically, and would not become a non-conference game. So that's a little realignment for you. I know it's not as hot and heavy as it once was, but there is another just piece of kind of the, you know, everything kind of sorting itself out on the other side of things.
You wonder in a normal year, which nothing's normal anymore, but in a normal year, how much that I'm happy for Army, great for them. But in a normal year, how much bigger would this story have been had we not seen so much mass chaos in the last 2 or 3?
I think about the same, honestly. Yeah. I don't know that there's just a big audience for Army that you'd be like, wow, and they're going to the AAC? No way. I don't think that's that big of a deal for most people. And I think it's something you'd make note of. Obviously, if you have personal ties, and that's a different story. But for the general public, you know, I think the reason why the other stuff got so big was just the amount of teams involved and sort of the brands involved as a whole. If it was just Arizona moving to the Big 12, I don't think it's nearly as big of a story. But the fact that it was like a conference could die that's been around for decades, you know, the home of the Rose Bowl and all these different things, the fact that that was just falling apart and there was a whole wave of people saying, that's not true. I mean, it created this whole thing. There's nobody going, Thamel's full of it. He's working for Endeavor. Clearly, Army's in his back. You know, there was none of that stuff that's throwing more gasoline on it. It's just it's one school making a move to a conference. It's not a power conference, so I don't think it's huge on the radar, but they still deserve the respect and the reporting and all that. So, yeah, that's why I bring it up, because that'd be, a step up, I guess you could say, for Army football.
Yeah, and the whole, I mean, they're not going to change anything about what they're doing late in the year with the Navy and all that. I think it's good.
Yeah,
so
it's not like this whole geography shift of like we're seeing with the ACC and Cal and, that kind of a deal. Yeah, so,
absolutely.
There's just an update. Army looking like they could be headed towards the AAC, and if that's the case, football only, then congratulations to them on that. Meanwhile, I don't know if you guys saw, but, Pat McAfee started his show on ESPN over the last, I guess it was last week maybe, or the week before. I think it was the week before when he started with he started when the NFL started. That's right. But he's got a weekly segment with Nick Saban. And during that segment, apparently it was brought up, especially in light of the loss to Texas, the whole retirement rumor saga that's been ongoing for a while now when it comes to Saban. I mean, I know of at least a couple of reporters for a certain school in the Big 12 that may have just beaten Alabama that's been throwing out the Saban retiring thing for like at least 4 years now. I mean, at least. And I know they're not alone. But I've seen that pretty consistently. Well, Nick Saban was on the Pat McAfee show, and when talked about, just all the changes going on in college football, he says he still feels great right now and that it's kind of laughable. I love what I'm doing, and I'm focused on the challenge. I feel great right now. I love it. We've got lots of challenges this season. I'm looking forward to it, and we're all in. And he did make mention of, if you listen to the rumors about, not only did he say is it kind of laughable, but he brought up the fact that it's been rumored time and time again that he would retire, and yet here he still is, and he's still doing his thing. And he said, when's the first time, he asked Mac, like, when's the first time you heard that I was going to retire? And then he pointed out that, about 5 years ago is probably when it started to get pretty hot, and yet here he still is. He says it creates some advantages for people, maybe whether it's in recruiting or whatever it might be, but I love what I'm doing, focused on the challenge, so on and so forth. So Nick Saban, not squashing retirement rumors, and he really couldn't say anything that's going to totally extinguish them, but I do think some of it is absolutely recruiting related and things of that nature.
Yeah, people want it. Yeah. They want it, so they put it out there.
Yeah.
And then they'll see, because it's probably like, and look, some of it might be like, look, Coach Saban's in his 70s. How much longer is he going to be there?
Yeah.
And the only truth to suggesting a guy is in his 70s and could retire any time is that is true. Like, he could hit a point in his life where he's like, I have done enough. But he's making his income right now is between his salary and the endorsements, probably around $15 million a year. Maybe more than that. Like, he's raking in a ton of money. He's doing what he loves. He's healthy. There's not any, kind of problems. So there's no reason for him to bail out of anything. And if you really want Nick Saban to retire, just enjoy it when the day comes where he actually retires. Like, that's the thing. You're sitting around hoping, like, maybe this will be the year where he's finally tired of being the richest and most successful guy at his job ever, and he decides to play golf.
It is amazing that, I think most of it is just hope and wishful thinking. Texas beat his team on their home field. We saw all the streaks that were broken or whatever. Someone like that could either quiver. He's not going to. He's just going to try to get better. They don't have a perfect team. That's obvious. They don't. But it's kind of a challenge. It's been a while. I mean, you see a coach win. I mean, Bob Stoops won a national title in 2000 and retired in 17, 16 or whatever it was. He eventually walked away. I saw.
He's not as old as Saban, though.
Yeah, I know, and I think Nick Saban. I'm not saying he's Bear Bryant. If he stops coaching, he'll die. But I think Nick Saban still has a young, youthful part of him. I like him, and I kind of like the way he kind of banters back and forth and argues a little bit when things are not going his way or their way for Alabama, or questions aren't very smart.
Yeah, what do you mean about the Bob Stoops thing, though?
Well, what I mean by that is that Nick Saban hasn't won a national title. What has it been, 3 years? And we're all like, oh, my God. Yeah. And then you think about coaches who won national titles early and then didn't for a long, long time. Just because he hasn't won a national title in 3 years doesn't mean the game has passed him by.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it sometimes it takes forever to get one, and sometimes you get one and then you don't get another one for quite a while. But, I think he sounds like a guy who – he sounds like a guy to me that if he stops coaching, then that's when life's going to really start going downhill for him. Like, that's when, health problems start and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because it just feels like it's so much a part of who he is that he's one of those guys that's just going to coach until he can't coach anymore.
Yep.
And, I honestly hope that's the case. I do enjoy that there's now teams like Georgia that can go and punch them back in the mouth, because there was a little stretch there where they were so dominant. It was sort of annoying about how dominant they were, because it's constant, and you couldn't really enjoy – save for a random team like a Clemson. Like when Clemson finally popped up, you're like, thank
Ohio
God
State,
somebody.
Yeah.
Well, Ohio State hadn't really won it in a while either.
It even took special moments when you did beat them. It
took the kick six or something. So they're not quite that now, and so there is a little bit less armor than there was before. But I think he's great for college football, and I want to see him coach as long as he's at a good level. I don't want to see him like Lee Corso out there. No. All due respect, I don't want him, to be like a shell of himself. But I do want him, as long as he's operating as he is right now, to go out there and be a big part of college football. So didn't exactly squash any potential of that, but he did at least address it. So I thought that was of interest. One Cowboys note, Brandon Cooks, MCL sprain, might not be able to play for the Jets. Was just going to throw that out there for Paul. I think they've still got plenty of weapons. And, well, after all, now they're not playing Aaron Rodgers. They're playing freaking Zach Wilson. So that certainly looks a lot better for the Cowboys than maybe it did previously. Although, based on how they play, even if Aaron Rodgers was playing, I'm not really, sweating it that much with that defense.
Well, look, the Cowboys have a fantastic defense. So do the Jets. So
True.
This game's not going to be 40-0 again. If the Cowboys roll off 2 40-0 wins in a row, then maybe hype is justified. Just because you don't do that in the NFL all that often.
The Cowboys are back. We'll start saying that.
But I do think that Brandon Cooks being out for any kind of long stretch is bad because he's one of the big differences in the offense, which was so bland last year and so reliant on just Tony Pollard, really. Mm-hmm. And then, you see things like, yes, Dak threw more interceptions than he had last year. Why is that? Did Dak get worse? Maybe a little bit, but did also they drop passes that turned into interceptions? Yes. Did he have receivers that weren't that good? Yes. So those are all causes for more interceptions. And so getting Brandon Cooks was specifically to help Dak Prescott not be, the Cowboys have had this really bad habit for years in the Tony do something, Dak do something department. And as opposed to, okay, but what have you put around him? And then not really recognizing deficiencies. So, yeah, I think it's bad if Brandon Cooks is out for any kind of a stretch.
They've had a lot of weapons over the years, man. They
do, and then they lose them, and then they're like, last year was a big one in that the decision to let go of Amari Cooper was fine. Like, go ahead and let go of Amari Cooper if you feel it's not going to help you and that he's not worth the contract anymore. But the decision to not replace him hurt them.
Yeah,
really badly.
And you're right about the Jets' defense. I mean, I should have given them more credit thinking about the way I framed that. They will give Dallas some problems. You would think they at least will give Dallas some problems, but it's just hard to imagine.
Allen some problems, that's for sure. They gave Josh Allen some problems, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's just hard to imagine that Zach Wilson's going to really do all that much against that Cowboys defense. So that's something to monitor for Cowboys fans as Brandon Cooks is injured and will be out for, or looks like he'll be out. If is the word used against the Jets. Meanwhile, brought up the Cowboys, and man, they were there on Sunday Night Football, and it was a very forgettable game. But the night after, we had the big pageantry and the big build-up for the debut of those Jets with Aaron Rodgers at the helm and just passing along that Bills-Jets got 22.64 million viewers for the Monday Night Football game across the various Disney networks, largest Monday Night Football audience in any week of the season since at least the year 2000. So pretty significant number there, 22.64, and the largest audience on Monday night since 2000, which was that's a very long time ago. I'll just say that. But, yeah, that's the previous high. It was any week of the season since at least 2000. Previous high, 22.637 million was Steelers, Colts. It was back in November of 2005. That was solely on ABC.
That was the year that the Colts may have played in the Super Bowl.
Was it or was it not?
It might have been the year that Colts and Bears played in the Super Bowl. I don't know the exact year. But that goes to show the numbers. Think about this. Texas, Alabama, two mega blue bloods. Dion and the effect he's had on Colorado, 10 million. And they're 22 million.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably bigger. And 10 million is a huge number and a great number to have. And the networks are excited, but golly, the NFL is just silly powerful.
Well, and Texas, Alabama fans, who I started seeing them actually get into like ratings squabbles. It should have been. And it's like I don't really want to turn it into that where it's like a comparison contest all the time because that did get kind of out of hand with the realignment stuff. But to the point was it should have been higher, but you had the Spectrum. Blackouts, right? Or was
Spectrum and Charter?
Charter, yeah. And so that affected Disney. Some people watching the game or their ability to watch the game. So it probably would have or was higher. But still, that's a monster number, but it's dwarfed by just a regular season game in the NFL, given, that you also do have to qualify Aaron Rodgers making his New York debut. But that's the NFL. That's the juggernaut that they are, pulling in 20+ million like it's nothing. Meanwhile, tonight, another NFL contest on the NFL Network, Amazon, excuse me. Vikings at the Eagles will be your game tonight, Thursday Night Football, and then college football, Bethune-Cookman at number 22, Miami. That'll be on the ACC Network starting at 6:30 Central, and also kicking off then Navy at Memphis, which will be over on ESPN. So a trio of football games, pro and college, to look forward to here in less than a couple of hours, and those are a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Around the corner, Hans Olsen. He played at Brigham Young. He's their color analyst of Brigham Young football. He will join us. Mickey at the bottom of the hour for a couple of nuggets and maybe an update on Brandon Cooks, Paul's top five, and more. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Pizza lovers get it because it's good. And Marcos.com is where you can go online to order the pizza you want. And you can either pick it up or they will deliver to you. We've had Marcos deliver here to our studio a handful of times in the 75704 area code. Marco's Pizza with 5 locations in the Waco area: Belmead, China Spring, Hewitt, Woodway, and Robinson. Pepperoni Magnifico, sausage and pepperoni Magnifico, whatever pizza you want, whether you want a smaller, medium, or large, and or whatever crust you want, whether it's kind of thin. I just like thin crust, and I like it cooked pretty good because I like it kind of crispy. Some like it floppy, like up in the Northeast. It's Marco's Pizza. Bob Mock, the owner, 5 locations, been in the pizza business throughout his life, and now runs his own. 5 of them, the fastest growing brand of pizza in America. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, get 2.9% for 72 months on new 2023 1500 Lone Star and Laramie 4x4 crew cabs, or $11,000 off MSRP on Lone Stars and $12,500 off MSRP on Laramies.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations. Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Over the last couple of years, when Brigham Young was going to play Baylor, and they did in 2021, and then the realignment story occurred that they're going to join the Big 12, we've gotten to know some great guys that covered or played at Brigham Young or played and covered Brigham Young. Hans Olsen joins us, color analyst for Brigham Young BYU football, with us on 365 Sports. So Arkansas on the road. Hans, what have you seen from Brigham Young where you think, and they're good, but this could be like a step up and a test for them?
It could be a big step up in a test. And it's time for BYU to do some good things for the Big 12. And wouldn't an SEC win for BYU as they move into Big 12 play? That'd be a nice little feather in the cap for them. So it's time for them to make a statement. They had a similar type game on the road at Tennessee a couple of years ago and surprised Tennessee, went out there and got a big win. So they're familiar with this. Kalani Sitake is familiar with preparation for these types of games. They've got a new defense that they're really excited about. It showed well the first couple of weeks, and so they're excited to roll that out on a SEC, a much bigger level. Jay Hill and his defensive staff, and they're stoked. They are stepping up, and they are looking really ready to go out and play against Arkansas.
What do you think will be the toughest challenge for this BYU team against Arkansas?
It's going to be holding KJ Jefferson inside the pocket. That's the big challenge. I've talked about how important it is to be able to set those edges against these SEC offensive lines and to have some pocket security to really make sure you contain that pocket. You guys know that KJ Jefferson is a battling ram. You hit him, he'll hit you back. And there are multiple examples of him taking 2-3 shots in a play. Like he's Big Ben type of resilience. He'll stand there, take the hit, and then he'll get outside the pocket, and then he'll scramble. I called the Arkansas, I think it was Arkansas Penn State bowl game a year ago or 2 years ago. Might have been Northwestern. And at the half, he had like 60 or 80 all-purpose yards. They go into the half, and they come out in the second half, and he goes for 280-something all-purpose. KJ Jefferson is the key. You've got to keep him in the pocket. You've got to secure the edges, make sure you force everything back inside, whether it's the walk-up safety or the corner responsibilities, and you have to push KJ Jefferson back inside to where your teammates are. That's their biggest task.
Hans, in seeing this defense under Jay Hill these first couple of games, giving up 16 points, 14 points, some of it's the competition, but at the same time, it seems like they've made some progress already, and we'll obviously know more this weekend. But what has jumped out to you as far as the differences that you see defensively?
It's the aggression. And to the BYU fans that are listening to this, or any of those Baylor fans out there that are listening to this, it's the aggression. Everybody remembers last week coordinating staff. It was rush 3. It was a lot of drop 8. It was trying to zone out, smoke out. It was trying to ghost out, cloud out, anything you could to try to confuse the quarterback, make him see ghosts, play soft, play back. That's just not how it is anymore. You're bringing corner pressures. You're bringing safety pressures. You're running twist stunts with your outside and middle linebacker that's going off of a stunt spin from your defensive line. So you're getting a lot of different movement and action. On a 3rd and 6, when it used to be, well, let's just see if we can just hang on with our coverage and maybe we can put an underneath zone and go cover 2 and we'll bracket the 2 wideouts. No. You're going to press those wideouts and you're going to bring heat. And BYU fans should be ecstatic over this. This is what they wanted. It's what they'd hoped for. Now you just got to continue to improve your personnel through the transfer portal and through recruiting. Just get the right personnel. They had this boss safety that would have been so good in this defense. Last name was Harper, and he was an absolute murderous type safety, and he gets injured and has a season-ending injury in their second scrimmage during fall camp. So they're trying to make up on the fly. They had their second-string safety got injured. Talon Alfred got injured just before the season started, too. So you got these headache experiences. That safety role is so big in this Jay Hill defense. But, man, they bring pressures. They're exciting to watch. It's a fun flying, high-pressure type defense, and it's fun to call it.
One time back when Phil Bennett joined Baylor's staff, when Art Briles was the coach, they needed help just to get a stop or two a half if they could. And he talked about blitzing and whatever. And he said, when you blitz, someone's band's going to play. Is that kind of the same thing with what Brigham Young's trying to do?
It is. It's that way, isn't it? You know, if the band director knows his business and he sees those linebackers creeping up, you know, he's got the victory dance or he's got something ready to go for sure.
Hans, I did see. Go ahead.
It is a bit of that. It is a bit of that. You roll some dice when you bring those corners and those safeties. You roll some dice. But doggone it, man, if you're bringing 6 guys and you got 5 guys that are sitting there pass blocking, or even if you do get a 6, you're telling me that 1 out of the 6 can't win his one-on-one battle and push the quarterback to a quick throw or a bad decision. You're telling me that 6 on a 5-man set pocket, you can't find one of those guys to give me pressure. That's the way I coach that. And if I can't win 1 of 6 in my battles when I bring 6, then I'm getting 6 new. It's a full wholesale. Get you 6, get out. I want 1 of the 6 that can get that stinking quarterback pressure. And I think that's Jay Hill's philosophy in that if we bring it, you got to get there. Otherwise, you put these guys on islands, and the band does need to be ready to strike.
You did a critique of Utah-Baylor, and obviously we were at that game, covered that game. Utah never blinked. They just kept doing what they do and eventually wore down Baylor and scored a couple of bad turnovers at the end. But you mentioned how Utah is doing, the coaching staff is coaching their you-know-what's off with some of the injuries that Utah is playing with right now. Pretty impressed with what you saw with Utah.
Oh, guys. It's crazy. So their starting quarterback, obviously, Cam Rising. Their starting tight end, Brant Keithy. 3 of their starting defensive linemen, Connor O'Toole, Junior Tafuna, Simote Pepa, all off the field. Their starting linebacker that was preseason, all Pac-12 team, Karini Reed, off the field. It's crazy who's off the field. And you're watching Andy Ludwig, the Utah offensive coordinator, and I could actually see his brain working. Like, what in the heck am I going to do? I've got to find a way to construct an 88-yard drive to try to tie this thing up. And I've got backup quarterbacks. One can't throw but can run. The other can throw but can't run, but decided he doesn't want to throw. What the heck am I going to do? And he goes to Nate Johnson for that 88-yard drive. And it's one of the most impressive drives I've seen he's a third-string quarterback. Remember, their first and second-string quarterbacks are out. Brandon Rose was the backup. He went out just preseason. Cam Rising's the starter. He went out. So Baylor pretty much played a 2-deep Utah team, and they've got Weber State this week, and then they get to Pac-12 action against UCLA. They're expecting that band to be back and ready. And when you got those 2s that now have Florida and Baylor experience going 2-0 through those games, yeah, Utah's got a lot of power, a lot of firepower.
So, do you think how much of a high wire act do you think it really was those 2 weeks having to do what they did?
Well, I think that it put everybody's nerves on the edge. It just everybody's nerves and everybody's existence on the edge. You guys can speak to it better than anybody in the country. The heat down on that field with that humidity and the way that Waco field just draws in that heat. They were saying it was, 128 down on the field or 130 or something crazy like that. Insane humidity. I'm talking about field heat. And you couple that with a Florida game that was a rematch of a game they lost end last year. It had a vengeance attached to it. You've just exhausted yourself. You've exhausted your players. You've exhausted your wits. You've pushed down to the third and fourth string guys to try to eke out this 2-0 situation so that maybe there's something bigger on the line than a Pac-12 championship. Kyle's got 2 of those back to back. Kyle Whittingham wants something more. And if he can do it, they did everything they could to patchwork and get there. This Weber State game, I look at it as like, oh, man, this is a really good time to rest. But Weber State upset Utah State in this state last year. And so they're always on high alert for an in-state upset or at least pushing you too far. So Utah can't let down their guard, but this Weber State game couldn't come at a better time for them.
Yeah, they just missed out on better weather by a week. It's already like it's about 30 degrees less than it was as far as the I would think the on-field temps, and the humidity's a little bit better. But, yeah, that was something sinister last week, and that they fought through to their credit. Hans, going back to BYU, Keaton Slovis, just a couple of games in now. The first game was, good. It was a low-scoring affair with Sam Houston State, and then really exploded in that second game as far as, statistically goes with the 4 touchdowns and then the one on the ground. What have been your thoughts on just seeing him with the reins and what stands out about his game?
Okay, so I don't want anybody to confuse this. I don't want BYU Baylor fans, anybody to confuse this, because I'm not saying it's a Mike Leach offense. It's not. Okay. It's not a Mike Leach offense. It's not air raid. But there are factors of pass game that incorporates run game. So I'm going to run a bunch set or a tight bunch set, or I'm going to run a spread trip with a 4-man wide receiver set, and I'm going to take my tight end, or I'm going to take my running back out of the backfield, put him behind those 3 receivers, throw him the ball, get it out in space, and let those receivers block. So against Sam Houston, those receivers didn't block. Nothing. They didn't block nothing. And I know Sam Houston went and held Air Force to like 13 points. So Sam Houston's got a good defense, but they didn't block nothing. Against Southern Utah, those receivers were driving dudes out on their own bench. Like, they were planting dudes on their butts, and those receivers were working their butts off. The tight ends were blocking extra, and so they ran a couple of screens. They ran one wide receiver screen, a split screen out to Darius Lassiter. He got behind his blockers. There were 3 blocks picked up on the left side of that stretch, one by the tight end and 2 wide receivers. And then there was one offensive lineman that got out on the screen set and picked up a outside linebacker as well. That's what it came down to. Wide receivers blocking. And they better do that against Arkansas if they want to have a chance against the Razorbacks.
Hans, you're really damn good at what you do. You really are. It's a great segment. Anytime we can get you on, and now you're a part of the BYU broadcast, which makes that already what was a good broadcast. It makes it very, very good with you and Greg, and we appreciate your time. Can't wait to get you on again. Appreciate your time, and good luck with Arkansas.
Hey, for the Smokes, I'm always available. You guys are a hot topic, and I'm always here for you. So
thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Hans Olsen with the Smokes in Catalina here on 365 Sports. We appreciate it. He really knows his stuff. I mean, that's awesome. When we come back, a couple of nuggets on the Cowboys as they play the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. We'll have that from Mickey. Garrett, did you get my email?
Yeah, I have them.
Okay. Here's a couple of things. Couple more nuggets in college football. Well, Deion Jr., Ralphie got a run out with shades and a hat on this week.
I think he took that idea from Craig.
I think he did.
Yeah.
By the way, the game last week in Boulder netted what was being reported as $18 million in revenue for the city of Boulder, Colorado. And then this one here, our good friend, a broadcast analyst, he's the voice of UCF. We had, in fact, Mark on yesterday, will be inducted into the UCF Athletics Hall of Fame. Great to see that from Mark Daniels, who is a regular with us on this show. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, Paul's Top 5. This is 365 Sports. Don Chibador Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. I was going to play golf this morning, but I had the front bridge issue. But plus it rained, although right now it's absolutely gorgeous. So I have every night before I play a round of golf, especially when it's very routine like Thursdays or Saturdays and Sundays, I have a Pelican case that carries about 6 to 8 cigars in it. And every morning when I'm about to play golf, go work out, then I have a reminder, cigars, for me to put inside this Pelican case to enjoy while I'm on the golf course. I went to Rocky Patel, and, of course, they have the brand Rocky Patel at Don Chibador and Coffee Beans. It's fantastic. It's my favorite brand of cigar, the Rocky Patel Torpedo Edge Light. They have Ashton, Macanudo, Cohiba, Padron, Arturo Fuente, Romeo and Julieta, you name it, they have it. And so I put the cigars in the box, and I get them from Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco, and also Richland Drive. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor loaded with the cigars you want. And then on top of that, the cutters for the cigars, or the punch, and or the torch lighters and the humidors. Plus CBD products, Vita Dreams to help you at night if you toss and turn a lot. Maybe it's because you have a lot in your mind, or maybe you just need a way to be able to fall asleep. You don't have insomnia this way. It will help you fall asleep very, very peacefully. It's Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, Carroll, Ashley, and Cheyenne, between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Mickey Spagnola, Thursdays in the 5 o'clock hour, DallasCowboys.com. Cowboys as impressive as you could possibly be, routing the Giants in the Meadowlands area. New Jersey at MetLife, and Mickey joins us as they go into week 2 against the Jets. Mickey, what is the status or your thoughts about Brandon Cooks?
Well, he's got a slight MCL sprain, so we'll see I think they'll take it till Saturday and see how he does. I was watching him do some rehab stuff today, and he was doing a little bit more than I expected. So I'm guessing it's a low level sprain, and he might have a chance. All I know, David, when I sprained my MCL, I was out 2 to 3 months.
You slacker! You have no pain threshold.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to play a game. So normally if it's a mid-grade sprain, guys are out 2 to 4 weeks. But I don't think his is in that category. So we'll see where that one goes. Mickey,
you have covered a lot of Cowboys games, and in spite of some things that didn't, completely work out well for them, the passing game wasn't what everybody thought it would be, I guess, but it didn't need to be. Was that as one-sided, lopsided a domination as you have ever seen?
I would think so, especially since it was a shutout, and it was their largest margin of victory in a shutout in franchise history. After that first series, the Giants just didn't have any chance. And I understand it was probably surprising to a lot of people, and I didn't expect them to be that dominant. But defensively, we saw that in training camp, right? They messed up more practices for the offense than you can imagine. And as Dak said today, he goes, yeah, it was nice to see somebody else have to deal with that, because they were dealing it with on a daily basis when they were in padded practices. So that part didn't surprise me that the defense was that dominant. But I didn't expect them to be so dominant that the Giants couldn't even score a point. And then offensively, they did what they needed to do. And everybody's like, well, they didn't do much on offense. And it's like, well, after, until they got to the last 2 series when the game was over and they had the JV in there, they scored points. They scored points on 5 of 7 possessions. You take that in any game, right?
Yeah, Mickey, I've been covering them, but not as much, in the last few years, just because of access of what we do now with college football. But I still watch every one of their games. But what is it about how they, even with Philadelphia winning the East and being in the Super Bowl, and they were really good, and they split last year, what is it, though? They have dominated the NFC East. They have just beaten the hell out of everybody. I don't know if the records are against everybody, but I would bet they've won 75% of the games for the last decade plus, if not for 30 years.
No, you're exactly right. And that's what, for them, and I understand the fan standpoint, but even for them, is frustrating that they have somewhat dominated the NFC East, and yet it hasn't turned into, the ultimate goal. But they've dominated the Giants. Now that's 12 out of the last 13 games they've beat them.
And like 10 or 11 of them to open the year, like when the Giants, and I get why that game's an opening like Sunday night or whatever, but when the Giants see that game pop up, which everyone knows is happening, they've got to just go, what the hell, man? Can we start with somebody else?
Yeah, and you can go back to, so that was their biggest opening victory since 1995, the season opener, and they beat the Giants 35-0. And I thought they had, when I initially looked, the year before, it looked like it was the season opener, but it was the second game. They beat the Giants 27-0. So the Giants, yeah, you're right. They must look at that game and go, no, not again, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, they've kind of dominated them. They've kind of dominated Washington, and it's been back and forth with the Eagles.
Mickey, I would assume that this week and especially next week, when they will be playing backup quarterbacks essentially both times, that we're not going to see any difference for the Cowboys defense when it comes to game plan and pressure and chasing after the quarterback like lions after an injured gazelle.
Well, here's the only thing, my reservation about that this coming Sunday against the Jets is that the Jets are going to play it, and they're hoping to play it, that their defense plays well enough that they don't have to expose their offense, that they can keep running the football. And they're pretty good at running the football. And one of the Cowboys' flaws last year was their run defense. Now, we'll see if they fixed it. They're talking a good game, but as Jaron Kearse told me today, he goes, yeah, we can talk all about it, but we got to do it. And I know I've thrown this stat out at you guys. 11 of 17 games last year, they gave up more than 100 yards rushing. And even the Giants got to, 102 or so, although most of them were on that first series. But, the Jets have a pretty good 1-2 punch with Breece Hall and Delvin Cook running the ball. And so my guess is, as long as they're not giving up a bunch of points defensively, and they're pretty good defensively, if they can stay close, they can keep running the ball and try to keep Zach Wilson, out of 3rd and longs and allow the Cowboys to turn that pass rush loose. So I think this is going to be a good test to see if indeed they are better against the run than they were last year. I said 11 of 17, and then in the loss to San Francisco in the playoffs, they gave up more than 100 yards rushing to them too. So pretty good test here to see if they have improved.
Did you spit, giggle, or throw up in your mouth a little bit when the extra point went wide left in the opening part of the game?
I'm sitting there, and I saw that, David, and I said, that's the worst kick I've seen him kick in either practice, preseason games since the first week of training camp. It was like, come on, that didn't really happen. And then, as you saw, he recovered and hit all the other extra points and had 8 of 8 touchbacks and his 2 field goals he hit. Because I watched him specifically in warm-up, and I don't think he missed one. You know how they kick one end and they go to the other end, and the deepest ones they attempted were 54 yards, and he crushed both of them either way. And then that happened, and it's like, oh, come on. But the impressive thing is that he didn't lose his poise. He came back and did his job, right? And as I talked to him, and he has never gone through any of this before. And so he said, there was a USFL game that there was rain, and I had to kick in the rain. I said, what about 80,000 people watching you? He goes, no, but you know what? He goes, when you're out there, you hear noise, but it really doesn't bother you because you're concentrating. But what happened was it was that sudden change, and so they had to go out there and kick the extra point, and he learned a lesson. So there was like an 18-second delay of setting the ball down and getting everybody set, and he was already with his steps ready to go, and he stood there instead of walking off, right? Because he learned that in training camp where they were they were going, okay, you kick 4. Well, he had to wait usually until the guys lined up and they told the rush team, here's what we want to do. Well, he learned to walk away, walk 10 yards back and just don't start looking at where you're going to kick the ball and then freeze yourself. And he didn't do that in that game. He went right where he was supposed to kick. He was so anxious. And I think he learned something because he's never gone through this stuff. And I'll give you another example, and this is pretty laughable. So the first preseason game, he kicks off, and he was going back upfield, and the equipment managers are going, where the hell is he going? Well, he was going to pick up his kicking tee. He didn't realize in the NFL somebody runs out from the sideline to get the kicking tee.
Okay.
In the USFL, he had to go get his own kicking tee, right?
Jeez, yeah.
So he hasn't been through a lot of this stuff. So I will give them credit if they remain patient with him and let him work through some of this stuff because he's really talented, you guys. And he's really, really got a good nature to himself. And I think they found something now. But we'll see what happens, obviously.
Mickey, La'el Collins released from Cincinnati this week. Offensive line depth, obviously a concern with every single team in the league, and the Cowboys no different than that, especially losing a couple guys to IR before the season even started. Could a reunion be in the works at the right number?
Well, obviously Cincinnati's got a lot of depth, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
No,
yeah.
He's not ready to play.
Yeah.
Remember, he's coming back from an ACL. And from what I read, it's like they were giving him every chance, and they decided that the salary cap hit was way too much for what he was affording him. So, yeah, I don't know about that one. Although, think about it, he's costing them $8 million in dead money against the cap. You don't cut guys after you sign them to a 5-year deal with all that guarantee, right? He cost them when they let him go, it was a $13 million cap hit for the guaranteed money. 5 point something last year and 8 point something this year.
Man, yeah,
for a minute there, I thought you were talking about this old contract with the Cowboys, and they're still paying for him.
No,
that's been a while.
I'm talking. That's what the Cowboys are being charged in dead money.
Oh, okay,
really?
They are
wow.
okay.
Yes.
So
because he had a 5-year deal, and I think he only served like 3 of them.
Okay, there you go. I was right.
So maybe they could tell him, hey, you're costing us $8 million. How about coming back and playing for $1.5 million?
Well, like in the Jason Peters kind of a thing, which he's even way younger than that. I thought, why not? If they need somebody. So
I just think I don't know if he's physically healthy enough to come in and help you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Hey, you could put him on the shelf and let him get in shape in case you need him down the stretch. Who knows? Mickey, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time as always.
Could put him on the practice squad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you put a veteran?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I saw where they increased it again. All right.
Yeah. Especially after COVID. Yeah. They changed all those rules.
Mickey Spagnola Thursdays at 5:30 with us on the Cowboys, and Paul Catalina's Top 5 is next.
Unite Private Networks. Ace is a hero. You've heard me talk about Ace a few times because he's the guy who came in and said, hey, what are you guys doing with your internet? And, we had the first company that was here and able to be with us the first time around. When we moved into the building, we had that, and we fought that forever. Swimming upstream would have been like, I would have loved to swim upstream. This was, trying to swim upstream in dry waters. It was bad. It was terrible. We had so many problems. And look, if you watch this show, you saw we used to pop off the air once in a while. Sometimes we had like weeks at a time where we would, the same time every day drop out. We'd call that company and go, hey, what's going on here? They're like, nothing. And you're like, there's something going on because every day at 3:41, we drop off. They're like, yeah, we don't see that. And we're like, well, we do. And we had no customer service. Well, Unite Private Networks has white glove customer service. We've had one issue. I called them. It was solved in about less than 5 minutes. They solved it for us, and it wasn't even on their end. 100% fiber optic network, no last mile copper. So that's what you do a lot of times when you get fiber optic network. The last mile is copper wire. It's not even fiber optics. This 100% fiber optics. Speeds up to 10 gigabytes per second, dedicated and symmetrical upload and download, and protected fiber service you're not sharing with anybody. And lost internet in business today means lost revenue. We know it. You know it. You've experienced it. So if you're looking for better internet for your business, UnitePrivateNetworks.com, or if you're here locally in the 254, call Ace Wiggly, 254-803-7070.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at Baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high-heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 people who have slighted Deion Sanders.
Does this include today?
Well, look, yes, it does. And there's a bonus on this one at the end, so bear with me. Number 5, Ed Werder, ESPN's Ed Werder. Good guy. Love Ed. I've spent a lot of time with Ed. One of the friendliest and most. Here's the deal about Ed Werder. Ed Werder is one of the most trustworthy reporters in reporterdom. Like, he is. If Ed says it, he's done his work on it. Like, he's in no way controversial. There's nothing about Ed that screams controversy at all. And he did make a tweet about Deion Sanders and stated some factual information about him, but Deion took it as sarcasm, I think, in the tweet. And so then after he covered the game, TCU and Colorado, and Ed never covers college football, but it was ESPN wanting to cover every angle of it. And Ed knows Deion from years and years and years of being one of the premier NFL reporters. He's in the press conference, and Deion Sanders is like, "You believe now, Ed? You believe now?" And Ed didn't really know what he was talking about.
Yeah, he goes, "In what?"
Yeah, in what? And so
because Ed's not that's not even top of mind. I kept the receipts and I get. All right, there's one.
So there's Ed Werder. Number 4, Jay Norvell. As you know, this was very recent. This is today. Sunglasses Gate.
About 6 or 7 hours ago?
Yes. Jay Norvell said during his interview with ESPN that he takes off his hat and sunglasses because his mother told him to do that when he talks to adults. And that Deion has made his little rah-rah speech to the guys after practice. Have you seen that on Twitter yet? The coaches have made rah-rah speeches about it. And now Jay Norvell is on that list of people who have disrespected Deion Sanders today.
Yeah, and going back to Edward, I think he handled that really well.
Yeah.
Like, he could have tried to make it a deal and fight back, but he just, I think it was pretty obvious what was happening there was not really Edward doing anything. But with Jay Norvell, it's very clear he took the shot. He straight up took a shot at Deion, at Deion's behavior as a man in some ways, right? I mean, if you're questioning like how he dresses and the fact that he's a man and he, what you were told or what you learned, I mean, I think this one's legit. I mean, the Ed Werder one, not so much. This one, absolutely legit because it's out there and proof's in the pudding. Jay Norvell said it with his chest out. Like he said it and wasn't planning on backing down whatsoever. So this game, I mean, that's the magic though of the just the Deion energy is that what was just a Colorado State game, fun and notable for people out there, not really so much for anybody else, is now going to be a game that a lot more people pay attention to because of simply this exchange. So, like I said earlier, if you're a promoter, you would love it. This is promotions. I mean, this is what this is, and unintentionally or intentionally, they promoted this fight or this game in a much bigger way than it was originally intended to.
I'm going to do something if you don't mind, only if, Garrett, you have it ready. Do you have the tweet from Norvell ready, the actual what he said? Did I send that to you?
We did that earlier.
This was something different, but okay, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. Number 3, Kendall Briles. And this was back when Shedeur was getting recruited a few years ago. Kendall was at Florida State. He's the offensive coordinator there and apparently disrespected Shedeur there, and they decided that they weren't ever going to talk about that again until, I guess, they played Kendall Briles, but they were going to leave and that they felt disrespected, and that was a big deal. I do wonder – I would love to hear the story from Kendall's side, which we never will.
No.
Never, ever, ever will, because it doesn't benefit Kendall to say anything. I just would like to know for my own edification.
I mean, if they beat them in Big 12 play next year or something, then maybe that would have opened the door for Kendall to say something, because they got one back. But, since you lost and since you don't really have room to say anything.
There's nothing that they can say, but it was a perceived slight. And whether it's intentional, at least they took it as a slight. So Kendall Briles got on the list, and they used that as motivation to beat TCU. Although Kendall Briles' day against Colorado wasn't really all that bad, but it certainly didn't do Joe Gillespie any favors that they were so motivated to beat TCU because of KB.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Gillespie deserves more blame for that loss than Kendall Briles by a long shot, and Chandler Morris deserves more blame for that loss than Kendall Briles, in some ways as well. I mean, they were in the red zone, his offense, and threw a couple picks that were bad, and you lost by 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not his doing. I know it's just kind of tense right now, the whole situation surrounding all of it, and I think TCU, they're in a weird place where they're like, how good are we? We're not maybe as good as we expected and everything, but this one I'm gonna need some clarification on, because I'm not just going to go Kendall Briles totally did that, because I don't buy that he's just ignoring Shedeur Sanders for other than just he's one of 100 kids that are out there, and he's just, going about his business. So I don't know, not being there, I'm hesitant to just go full on that, this was the way that it was portrayed to be.
Look, if you told me, if you gave me specific details of how someone is acting, I could be like, okay, well, yeah, that was rude. But if you just kind of talk about it in generalities, I'm like, well, is that how you perceived it, or was he just treating everybody the same way and didn't take special note? Number 2, Brent Venables. Remember Brent Venables, which I didn't understand, but they kind of, and I guess he was asked about it, but he was like, we didn't want to do it that way. And in response to Deion building out of the portal, this one was a little bit calmer, because Deion's not necessarily using this one as a chip on his shoulder for a specific game, because Colorado and Oklahoma would only play now in a bowl game ever. They're not going to be in the same conference again. Colorado is essentially taking Oklahoma's place, as they come, one of the schools taking Oklahoma's place as they leave the Big 12 and Colorado comes back in. But Brent Venables, also on the list for whenever Colorado and Oklahoma's paths do cross again.
Well, unlike Kendall Briles and unlike Ed Werder, I know Ed's written about Deion, talked about Deion, but not like it was portrayed. But, this one, Brent Venables mentioned him by name. Like, he flat out said, we're doing it differently than Deion. He said, let me pull up the exact quote. Okay, you want to talk about a coaching change, resetting the standards and what expectations are? I gave guys 12 months of grace. I was unlike Deion. I gave 12 months of grace to figure it out. So that one you can't really say he misunderstood that one. It's no, he mentioned you by name and mentioned that the way you're doing it's not the way that he's doing it. And I could see where you could perceive that as a slight, that he's also indicating that their way is the better way of doing it. So, that'll bear out over these next 10 weeks and beyond. But I can see where he was coming from with being a little miffed by Venables' comments.
And I think there might have been a comment from Rule back in the summer, similar.
Get there.
Whoa.
A guy from Nebraska who coached at Baylor.
We'll get there. But Venables, here's the other thing about Venables that makes him look bad. Look, Deion took more players out of the portal, but who's your quarterback, Brent? It's not like you went full Dabo on this.
Well, it's not like you sat on your hands this offseason. A big part of what you did was go out and get a bunch of guys. Yeah.
You just got less. Like, that's the only difference is that you went to the fridge less.
Well, that's the question is what's the threshold of, like, it's okay to do 20 additions and run 20 guys off, but it's not okay to do 70. Is that what we're like? Is 25 okay? Yeah. Is that under the threshold, or is 40 and above like that's against all that is wholly of college football? And that's where I think, there's like what standard are we talking about here? What's okay? Because if you're flipping 20 guys, I'm not saying Oklahoma specifically, but in general, if you're flipping 10 guys, I mean. Yeah, I get it's one number's bigger than the other, but is it all that different really in the end, especially for a first-year guy? I don't think so.
No. Well, let me tell you something. After last year, Oklahoma probably should have flipped 70 guys.
Yeah.
Look, and again,
Lincoln flipped them from them, and that's why they had to do some of it. But regardless,
if you're in Vegas at an all-you-can-eat buffet, because the guy at the other table goes and gets 4 ribeyes, it doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means he went and took advantage of the same deal that's available for you. So,
and if he's winning, it worked.
Yeah, exactly.
It's worked. If they were losing, then Deion wouldn't be saying anything. I mean, or the conversation would be much different. But they're winning, and so that's the proof in the pudding that you need.
And number 1, guess who? Matt Rule.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shocking.
Number 1, Matt Rule, who this one. And this is the one that made me really want to do this list because all these other 4 have been like there's been like something concrete really that you could point to. And Matt Rule's are more figurative. And then the praying on the center of the field one is completely invented by Shedeur. That's in his own head. That's that Michael Jordan, I heard from this guy that this guy said that about me and that works, it works. But yeah, Matt Rule praying on the center of the field to disrespecting the Buffalo, irritating Shedeur and Deion. That one's new to me. That one was that's why it's number 1 because
they were praying on the logo.
It took a lot.
And,
go ahead.
No, then they just went out there and after the first half beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a legit explanation for why they were doing what they're doing, but, obviously Colorado saw it differently. I was looking forward to a game where they didn't have some, like, big sense of motivation, or some perceived slight, but then Jay Norvell just delivers it right on their front porch, which, I can't wait. If Colorado State goes out and stinks up the joint, then I'm really going to question it. And if I was a Colorado State fan, be kind of pissed of why he said what he said. If they go out there and they ball out, then be like, you know what? He had a feeling and he was like, you know what? No, we're going to push back, and I get that. But if they get smoked, then, I'd really question the logic in saying what he said. Other than, you know what? He doesn't care and he just wants to make a point because that's how he feels. But, also I think you need to add – or you could add, so there's another, Pat Narduzzi also questioned Deion's recruiting methods. So this list is just going to get longer and longer and longer. Yeah.
And look, we're going to throw in a bonus.
I'm glad you
said by doing this list.
That's what Joe Klatt was talking about, what he thought was the over-under on wins. He goes, I'm sure they'll use this. Here are some of the quotes that not everybody read everything with Norvell. It was great. I love that they came out of a bunch of interviews for the ESPN game, but our kids came out of those interviews really with a chip on their shoulder. They're tired of all that stuff. They're really tired of it. They're Colorado not going to like us no matter what we say or do. It doesn't matter, so let's go up there and play. That's just how I feel. And then he went on, he goes, I don't care if they hear this in Boulder. So maybe reverse psychology with Norvell. There's a lot more quotes to that, but the one that, of course, got out there was the sunglasses, the hat, when you introduce it as an adult, when you walk up and talk to somebody. Thank you, Garrett Ross. Also, Levi, Owen, Emery working on 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. Jack McKenzie, our sponsors, all of them. Every one of them that allow us every day to walk in this crazy good studio and do what we do, but also because of you, the audience, we appreciate you so much. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. This is 365 Sports, and have a great night.